Hello and welcome to Salute Your Sports. Kamen Entchev here with Tom Casselman. This is one of the biggest shows of the year, Tom. It's our full NFL season preview. We'll be doing a lot of were we right, were we wrong, by the way, right? We're going to be looking at this in about 6 months. We'll talk about the MVP. We'll go through each division. We'll pick the winners and first through fourth place. We'll pick our 3 wildcard teams in the NFC and the AFC. And we'll pick our Super Bowl matchup. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Should be a lot of fun, Tom. I am beyond fired up for football season. It's like my body needs to be scratched. I'm itching. It's almost like I have bed bug bites for football, Tom. That's how bad it is. I cannot wait for the football season, and I cannot wait for the show. This is truly like my favorite show we do of the year, probably, Tom, just because we get to, in retrospect, it's easy to pick the Super Bowl when there's 2 teams left. You have a 50-50 chance. This is where the real fun begins because we know we're going to make a lot of smart picks. We're also going to make some dumb picks. There's going to be a team that we both picked that to be really, really good. They're going to drop a stinker. It happens every single season. I can't wait to get started tonight. I'm recording on a Wednesday night, Wednesday, August 28th. About a week from the season starts. How are you doing tonight, Tom Casselman?
I am doing fantastic. Also in that mood for football. I mean, we've got fantasy football draft season coming up for the redraft
Going
leagues.
down.
Of course, everybody who's in a dynasty league is finally looking forward to actually setting lineups and getting players into motion there. And of course, we just had cut down day for the NFL, which means rosters are being finalized. We're actually now looking at 53-man rosters, which of course are going to be 46-man game day rosters. And we're going to be kicking off the NFL season next week. We've been waiting a long time for this. And of course, good to see you coming with at least half of the answers for the topics today on your shirt. So that's a great way to start. That makes all the guesswork's out. Everybody who's ever watched the show knows exactly
Tom,
what we are in for.
You didn't think I would pick the Chiefs and Mahomes. There's no way.
Well, and I mean that's a great place to start because we're talking about if we're going to go based on Vegas odds, is kind of picking the prohibitive favorites, mostly because that means that's where the public perception is. Let's just start with the MVP race, one where there was possibly not like a super duper clear cut MVP last season. Lamar Jackson, of course, had a phenomenal year. But certainly, if we're ranking it amongst all the MVP seasons we've seen, at least of the modern era, I certainly think his first MVP season was more impressive. And certainly, we've seen some really impressive ones from the current odds on favorite Patrick Mahomes, who is now going to be atop the board. I think that just jumping right in, there's nothing ever wrong with picking Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs for anything. Yeah. I like to be a little bit of a contrarian and kind of say, okay, here's a couple of different options to look at. So, Patrick Mahomes as the MVP, I think there's a lot of strong arguments for it. The Chiefs have never, ever been shy about investing in him. I think the one,
except for last year, maybe.
Yeah, with trading away Tyreek Hill, I think that was kind of a step of, okay, let's make Patrick Mahomes more of a focal point. He was able to do okay with that, but we also saw with a little bit of
set the single season total yards record for a quarterback 2 years ago, Tom.
I would say
passing and rushing yards combined. He had 17 games. The Drew Brees at 16. But
that's part of it too.
He thrived.
He did really, really well. But we saw last year was a bit of a down year for Patrick Mahomes, which is still a really good year for any quarterback.
Sure.
Obviously, the Chiefs won the whole bloody Super Bowl, but certainly the Chiefs made a lot of investment drafting Xavier Worthy, bringing in Marquise Brown, really trying to bolster up a receiving core of that.
And they just added Juju Smith-Schuster too. Sorry to cut you off.
They brought him back? No, that's totally good.
Yeah, Juju's back.
So he had a pretty good run with the Chiefs as well. I don't know how much of this is them kind of like planning for Travis Kelce's eventual decline because he's still phenomenal. But let's face it, at 35, at some point, Father Time catches up. So if you want to go Patrick Mahomes, I'm totally good with all of that. For me, I'm going a little off the beaten path. I'm going with CJ Stroud.
I was going to guess CJ.
Yeah, I mean, We're
It's
talking
not
about
even a bold pick, Tom, but
not Super
he's
Bowl. No, like you're
amazing.
you're only going down like 3 or 4 spots on like a betting board or something like that to find his name. But there's a lot of strong arguments. I mean, there's the environmental stuff. Same offensive coordinator that he had last season. You're playing inside a dome for all of your home games. You're playing in the AFC South, where even later on in the season, you're going to have some fairly nice weather. And of course, they went out and they invested. They upgraded from Devin Singletary at running back to Joe Mixon. They went ahead, added Stephon Diggs to their receiving core, in addition to the strides that Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz made last season for the Texans. So I think there's a lot of positive regression for CJ Stroud. Had a really good rookie year, 23 touchdown passes to 5 picks. I'd say the 5 picks, that I feel like that's not really a sticky statistic that we can count on. Turnovers can be a little bit fluky like that. I certainly don't anticipate him having a season where he throws like 46 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Wouldn't be surprised, but I think that'd be some pretty tall timber. But I think he's got everything around him. He's proven that he has the baseline talent. He has continuity within a system, and a really good team around him. I think that the Texans offense is going to be strong this year, and they're going to be helmed by a really, really good young quarterback, perhaps one of these guys that's going to be kind of like backfilling as Patrick Mahomes becomes more of a senior statesman, that CJ Stroud is going to be right on the forefront of the next generation of great quarterbacks in the league.
I love that pick, by the way, Tom. CJ
Mhm.
Stroud, in my opinion, has the best offensive weapons in the entire NFL. The only other option is maybe Tua, because I think Tua's top two in those running backs are really, really good.
Yeah,
But I
he's got some
think you
good
look at
stuff.
CJ Stroud in terms of having, Stephon Diggs added to that team, Nico Collins and Tank Dell. Let's not forget last year, Nico Collins and Tank Dell together, both healthy, not much of the season. He put up insane numbers. He's essentially adding two more receivers. Already has a great tight end in Dalton Schultz. He's got maybe the best three deep receiving core in the league. It gets kind of
Mhm.
competitive. Like, what's the best receiving core? I mean, like, obviously, 1, 2, you can go A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. You could go Waddle and Hill, which I think is the best. But if we're going like top three, Nico Collins and Tank Dell have the talent to be a number one receiver. I think on many teams, they would be number one receivers. Stephon Diggs was seen for many years as a number one receiver. They have arguably three number ones. So your pick, Tom, I love it. Of course, I'm going with Patrick Mahomes. Of
Yeah.
course, I'm going with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, come on. Last year, they had nobody that can catch the ball. Rashee Rice emerged late last year. Kadarius Toney was horrific. Travis Kelce, let's not forget, Travis Kelce played a lot of last year injured for the Kansas City Chiefs. You saw him rest the last week of the season. You saw him get healthy for the playoffs, and you saw what happened with Travis Kelce. They have added Hollywood Brown, who I know is banged up now, but he'll be there for most of the season. One of the most explosive and fast receivers in the league. They added Xavier Worthy, the fastest 40 time we've pretty much
Mhm.
ever seen out of the draft. They added Juju Smith-Schuster back from 2 years ago just this week. They have actually a really good receiving core. I would say one of the better in the league, and it's addition by subtraction. They cut Kadarius Toney, Tom. Addition by subtraction for the Chiefs. This is a pretty good team around Patrick Mahomes. If you follow Kansas City Chiefs Twitter, if you follow what a lot of the people are saying, the word on the street is that the Chiefs offense is ready to be unleashed again. Last year was a lot of dink and dunk. It was Patrick Mahomes being smart, Patrick Mahomes being reasonable. Their defense was really, really good. They didn't have to have, 320 yards passing a game and 2, 3 passing touchdowns. They probably don't have to have it this year either. But I think Mahomes is going to say, wait a minute. Last year, a lot of people were like, Mahomes is off. He's not right. I'm going to show you guys what happens when you get me some pieces, right? He gets the right keys, gets the right pieces. Patrick Mahomes will be motivated. He'll be going for a three-peat. He is the best player in the league. He's got the best coach in the league in Andy Reid. And now that he has a pretty good receiving core with pretty good weapons, I think Patrick Mahomes wins the MVP. I think he's going to win the Super Bowl MVP, the league MVP. I mean, there's really not much of a question that he's the top quarterback in the league. But if anyone has any questions about that, they won't have any more when this season is done. Patrick Mahomes wins his third MVP. He's 28 years old, third MVP, which would equal Tom Brady. You better believe that Patrick Mahomes is paying attention to that, Tom. Of course, the 7 rings matter more. Of course, the 7 rings is the ultimate legacy. But if he could get to 3 MVPs before 30, he's going to love that. He's going to absolutely love that. By the way, Manning with 5 is the most ever. Rodgers has 4. Brady and Brett Favre have 3. Patrick Mahomes gets his 3rd MVP this year. A lot more deep throws, a lot more fun. We see a little bit more of the Kansas City Chiefs of old, that air raid, air attack. Because Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, not as good as Tyreek Hill, but there's similar players in that system. Andy Reid will find a way to, get them to work. And I cannot wait to see it this year.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of legacy, let's just start jumping in with our regular season picks. We're going to go division by division, starting in the AFC East. And I mentioned legacy because we have a couple different legacies on the line. Of course, the Buffalo Bills have undergone some change with their roster that we talked a little bit about heading into the offseason. And certainly they have some questions that they need to be able to answer this year, as they've kind of always been knocking on the door, kind of playing like that little brother role to the Kansas City Chiefs, getting close, but not quite getting over the top. You've got the Miami Dolphins, who literally bowed out facing the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs last year, a team that had a really great offense, returning pretty much everybody on that offense. Is their defense going to be able to hold up? Are they going to be a late season team? You've got the New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers played all of 4 snaps last year before rupturing his Achilles tendon. How is he going to come back at the ripe old age of 40? Certainly, the mind is sharp. The arm talent is still there. How are the legs going to be holding up? How are the Jets going to be able to supplement them? And then kind of distantly, we've got the Patriots are an interesting spot. Maybe they have their quarterback of the future. This season is going to be about figuring what they have kind of as a foundation moving forward. I think we can both agree before we pick the winner, we can go ahead and pick the Patriots as probably the last place team in the division this year. So Kamen, I mean, there's a lot of juice here right off the bat between the Bills, the Jets, the Dolphins. Who do you like to come out of this division as the winner? I imagine we may have a wild card team or two coming out of here later on in the program as well. But let's start with the team that you think is the 1A going to be carrying this banner.
Gosh, this division is probably the toughest one to pick for me, because this is probably the one where I think there's 3 teams that can each win it. Like the AFC North, has a couple of really good teams. I think, there's several competitive divisions where there's 2 teams that I think can win it. This is probably the one division where there's 3 teams that can each legitimately win it. You look at the betting odds, they'll show you that as well. Vegas thinks the same thing. Plus 160. The Bills are the favorites on FanDuel. But actually, no, Bills are the favorites on Bet Rivers Sportsbook. But on FanDuel and Bet MGM, the Jets are the favorite at plus 160. And the Dolphins, by the way, are right at that plus 200. So all 3 of them are like bunched up there in the odds. All 3 of them have a legitimate chance to win. As far as who I think is going to win, I'm the type of guy, by now, Tom, is that you got to prove to me. I got to see the champ get knocked off before I pick against them. The Buffalo Bills have won 4 straight AFC East titles. I'm going to pick them to go for 5 straight. I know Diggs is gone. Gabe Davis is gone. Their top 2 receivers. I know their defense has lost some guys. Their team has lost a few things. I think what we're going to see with Josh Allen is the same thing we saw with Patrick Mahomes post Tyreek Hill. He loses Hill. Allen loses Diggs. He becomes a better overall player. He's forced to scan the field more. He's forced to expand his mind, make those smart check down decisions. Josh Allen, for me, is the 2nd best player in the National Football League behind Patrick Mahomes, and I think he's going to prove it. On paper, roster-wise, the Jets should win the division. They have an incredible defense. They have Garrett Wilson at receiver, Breece Hall at running back. But there's something about the Jets. Brees Hall is coming off an injury. Aaron Rodgers has been injured. Their offensive line is still not good. They made it better, but again,
Mhm.
I got to see it before I can believe it. So I never want to wish injuries upon anybody, but I think there's going to be some sort of fluky moment at some point where somebody on the Jets gets hurt, and that's going to cost them ultimately the division title. The Dolphins, I like a lot. Um, Again, any one of these teams could win the division. It could be 1, 2, or 3. None of them would surprise me. The Dolphins have a lot of question marks on defense, and I do mean a lot of question marks. Their great defensive coordinator is gone, but their offense is a top 5 offense, if not the best offense in football. Tua's a terrific quarterback. Tyreek Hill is probably the best receiver in the league. NFL top 100. His peers voted Tyreek Hill as the best player in the entire league.
Mhm.
Jalen Waddle was also super fast. Devon Achane is fast at the running back spot. Raheem Mostert is really good. I think by just how good that Dolphins offense is alone, they're a contender to make the playoffs. I'm going to say this is going to be one of these divisions where it's going to be like all 3 teams are all within like a game of each other, something where the tiebreaker might matter, which, by the way, the Bills have absolutely had the Dolphins number. They've had the Jets number as well. So, maybe the Bills go 2-1 against Miami, same record, finish ahead of them. Maybe the Jets lose a tiebreaker somewhere. It's going to be fluky. It's going to be close.
Mhm.
But I believe in Josh Allen. I'm a huge Josh Allen fan. I think the Bills are going to get first in the East. But by the way, Tom, 4 straight division titles for the Bills. Before that, 11 straight for the Patriots. So before I pick the Jets and Dolphins, 2 teams that consistently have a lot of talent, 2 teams that never seem to get the lucky breaks, that never seem to win the division. They got to win a division before I can pick them. Give me the Bills to take the AFC East behind a great, great season for Josh Allen, who, by the way, top 3 MVP candidates this year: Mahomes, CJ Stroud, Josh
Mhm.
Allen. Mark it down, Tom. Look for a massive season from Josh Allen and Dalvin Cook as well at that running back spot. James Cook, excuse me.
Yep.
James Cook at the running back spot for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I really had a difficult time with this one because yeah, I'm a big believer, of course, that quarterbacks are a significant part of a team in driving them forward, but you can't ask them to do too much. I mean, how great has Aaron Rodgers been for the Green Bay Packers all these years, and yet they only won Super Bowl because they rarely, invested in the talent around him. I think only picking like one first round pass catcher, or I think he only had one his entire career in Green Bay, and that was Mercedes Lewis toward the back end of his career, the tight end.
Sure.
I mean, this is a team that is pretty invested in Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to pick the Jets to win the AFC East. I don't necessarily feel great about it, but the moves that the Bills have made, they're putting a lot of trust in Khalil Shakir, a journeyman in Curtis Samuel, a rookie in
Keon
Keon
Coleman,
Coleman.
baby.
They're putting a lot of trust in these guys to be a great pass catching unit. I absolutely believe Josh Allen is a great talent, but let's also not mistake the trajectory that his career took once they acquired Stephon Diggs in a trade. That's when Josh Allen went from really talented but really erratic to being a superstar quarterback. I think that having a good receiver kind of helps with your completion percentage. We'll see how much of that variance comes down a little bit. With more experience in the NFL, I think Josh Allen will be still really, really good. But it's, in those big moments, can the Bills count on their wideouts to win some one-on-one matchups? Because that's going to be key. I think the teams are going to be keyed in on Dalton Kincaid. I think that, of course, the run game has to be significant, especially in a cold weather, blustery climate like Buffalo. I'm going to go with the Jets on this one because they invested in the offensive line. Olu Fashanu, I was a pretty big fan of him coming out of Penn State, bolstering up that offensive line to protect Aaron Rodgers. Breece Hall had a phenomenal season last year, and now he's an extra year removed from that ACL tear. Of course, Garrett Wilson, a very talented receiver, to say nothing of this phenomenal deep Jets defense that, Aaron Rodgers, like I said, played 4 snaps. The Jets still won 7 games last season with a smorgasbord of Zach Wilson and other quarterbacks. I mean, it was a
Trevor
rotation of guys.
Simeon, Tim Boyle.
It was just a bunch of and they still won 7 games. I don't think Aaron Rodgers, of course, is anywhere near his prime. I think he's going to be just good enough to get them to win this division, provided he stays healthy. And of course, I'm just going to say this now. This is the caveat for all of our division picks going forward. Of course, nobody's going to say, "Hi, you fools picked the Chiefs." And if Patrick Mahomes, God forbid, it has an injury of some kind,
Don't even say
like
it, Tom.
I'm just saying, all of these are assuming a good health and for these teams going forward. I like the Jets to win the division. I certainly think that, like you said, it's going to be really, really close. But I think the Jets just have the strongest supporting cast and a turnkey quarterback that is going to help keep things rolling for them.
Just
In
to
the
clarify,
AFC,
Tom,
oh, go
just
ahead.
to clarify, like, me, I'm very stats based and very logic based, very roster and talent based. Just want to say this again. The Jets have the most talented team in the AFC East. It is just a feeling.
Sure,
Unlike, my
that's fine.
stats, it's my gut feeling that something's going to go wrong with the Jets, whether it's the coaching staff, whether it's losing a bunch of close games, whether
Mhm.
it's an injury, just something always seems to go wrong with the Jets. And I just think it's going to happen again this year for Rodgers and the Jets.
Something to keep an eye out on for the Jets early on in the season. They're playing 3 games in like 10 days. Let's see, they play the 49ers on the
Exactly.
9th, the Titans on the 15th, the Patriots on the 19th. My thinking, I'm going to take the positive side. Titans and Patriots aren't necessarily very good teams. I think that the
No.
Jets can put together a couple of wins early in the season with that really compressed schedule at the beginning of the year when everybody's rested, at the beginning of the year when everybody is as close to 100% as they can be. And that's going to give them a benefit on the whole rest deficit spectrum later on in the season, balancing things out a little bit for them. I think that if they can kind of weather that early slate, I mean, they also have the Broncos and the Vikings. It's a tough sled. It's tough sledding with that schedule early on, but they could easily start 5-1 before they're facing the Bills in October. So that's another part of the reason I know that's a very soft
Bills play
thing.
the
Part of the
Cardinals week 1 too, though. So it's like they should
well,
be
that's a soft. Well,
off
I
and
mean,
running too.
I don't know. Cardinals could be surprising.
Do,
Kyler Murray's looking pretty good,
I
but let's move to
I
the
do have
AFC
them as a
North.
surprise team. Real quick, do
Oh
you have the
yeah,
Dolphins or the Bills then in second?
I am going to hold that for the wild card discussion. A little
Okay,
bit of a
sounds
drum
good.
roll effect
That's
there.
fair. That's
Let's
fair.
move to the AFC North, another division where I highly suspect we are picking more than one team to make it into the playoffs. But
Hmm.
for this segment, we are going to pick the division winner. Last year, it was the Baltimore Ravens behind Lamar Jackson, the MVP, behind Zay Flowers with a strong rookie season, weathering a Mark Andrews injury midway through the year
And a great defense.
and a great defense. Derrick Henry is now has replaced Gus Edwards, so you're leveling up a little bit there. We think that
Yes.
age cliff looms large for.
Second in the league in rushing yards last year, Tom, in a down year on a terrible Titan team where everyone focuses on Derrick Henry. You may think I don't like Lamar Jackson as much as I should, but man, do I love Derrick Henry.
So do you have the Ravens winning the whole division then, or are you looking Pittsburgh? You're looking Cleveland, you're looking Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think it's a two-team race for me. I think last year Cleveland was extremely fortunate. Cleveland had a lot of things, like a lot of injuries, but they somehow won a lot of games. You always talk about regression to the mean, peaking, playing better than they should. I think the Cleveland Browns had a fluke year last year. Now, every team in this division last year finished over 500. I could see that happening again or being close. I think the Browns and the Steelers are going to be close. I think the Browns might finish just under, Pittsburgh a little bit over. But those are, to me, the third and fourth teams. I want to pick the Steelers to get third because the Steelers are not getting fourth in the division ever. Mike Tomlin
Mhm.
is there. Pittsburgh finds a way to win. I do think it's a two-team race between the Ravens and the Bengals. I think if we took these two teams at their absolute best, I think in a playoff scenario, I trust the Bengals more because I've seen them get to the Super Bowl. I've seen those guys deliver in the playoffs. The Ravens have not done that at the same level, but over a 17-game regular season, I actually like the Ravens to win the division. I think that there's some question marks with Joe Burrow coming off an injury. There's just some chemistry stuff. Maybe it doesn't affect them. Maybe it does. Jamar Chase was supposed to show up in practice and play today. And, he showed up 17 minutes late in street clothes. I know, he's bargaining for a deal. Jefferson gets paid. Lamb gets paid. He wants to get paid next. But there's just something there that's just a little bit off that might cost them a game or two on their schedule. The Ravens have, along with probably the Chiefs, the best defense in the league. I know they lost a couple guys, but they have most of the team back on defense. And they have such a talented defense. And Derrick Henry, again, getting older, off season last year, he finished, let me say this again, Tom, second in the National Football League in rushing yards. One more time, second in the National Football League in rushing yards. And that's in Tennessee, where their team was not good. Their quarterback play was atrocious. The other team knew that Derrick Henry would get to run the ball, and they still couldn't stop him. I look at Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, and I look at what the potential they have on that team. The speed of Lamar Jackson and the power of Derrick Henry. Can you imagine running an option, and you're a defensive player, and you have to choose, I'm going to get Derrick Henry or I'm going to get Lamar Jackson? That is scary, Tom, especially in the regular season where, there's more injuries. There's a lot more games going on. There's not buys. There's not home field. You don't have that same feeling of like just one focus. You're focusing on the season as a whole. I think that the Ravens are the team to beat in the AFC North. They're a slight betting favorite, by the way. If you look at the Vegas odds, they're a slight betting favorite. I do like the Ravens. Their defense is better than the Bengals, plain and simple. They have a better defense than the Bengals. I might like Burrow better than Lamar Jackson, but I like the overall team that Lamar has around them considerably better than the guys Burrow has. Now, Burrow has better wide receivers. Let's not mistake wide receivers for overall football team, because Lamar has better running backs. Lamar has a better offensive line. Lamar has a better defense. He's got a better kicker. He's got a better coach. Lamar Jackson is put in an incredible position. He's got one of the most loaded rosters, top to bottom in the National Football League. There is a reason why he won the MVP last year. Yes, he's a terrific player, but how do you win the MVP? You have terrific players around you that help you out. And he's got a lot of great guys. I'm picking the Ravens slightly ahead of the Bengals, but I definitely think could go either way. The Steelers are a team that I have in third place. I think Russell Wilson will get rejuvenated. I have a lot of hot takes on Russell Wilson, and I know I'm not the biggest Justin Fields guy, to say the least. My hot take on Russell Wilson is that he starts all 17 games this year. All 17 games. Everybody's waiting for Russell Wilson to fail. Everybody's waiting for Justin Fields to get a chance. Tom, every single NFL team in the offseason looked at Justin Fields as a backup quarterback. Not a single team want to take a chance on Justin Fields as their starting quarterback. The only people that want Justin Fields as the starter is some random Chicago Bear fans that have no clue what they're talking about. Russell Wilson last year had 21 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions. That's a Pittsburgh Steelers team that is coached by Mike Tomlin, a top 3 coach in the league. They have TJ Watt, the best defensive player in the National Football League, the only player ever to lead the league in sacks on 3 separate occasions, TJ Watt. They have George Pickens last year, who played with Kenny Pickett, one of the worst quarterbacks in the last 5 years in the league, if not ever. George Pickens was number 1 in the NFL in receptions, receiving yards per catch. Number 1 in the NFL. What does that mean? That means that he is in a big play waiting to happen. What does Russell Wilson do? That lob ball, that touch deep ball, that's his go-to thing. He's going to target George Pickens. They're going to be a great connection. The Pittsburgh Steelers will get 3rd in that division, and they're going to be a sleeper team. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, potentially for the playoffs. They did make the playoffs last year, despite all the disarray they had. Even if Russell Wilson prediction fails, even though I'm not high on Justin Fields, he is better than Kenny Pickett. He's better than Mason Rudolph. The Steelers currently have 2 quarterbacks in the roster that are better than the guys they had last year. They still have two good running backs. They have a great defense and a great coach. Pittsburgh will get that third spot. We could have two, do I dare say three wild card teams in the North? Now, this is top to bottom, probably the best division in the National Football League. I think the NFC North is coming. Obviously, is a really, really good division. We'll get to that later on in the show. AFC East might be the best three deep, but I think the Patriots are a bottom five team in the league. If we wanted to rate these teams 1 through 4, this is the deepest division in the league and the best division in the league. I think the Browns, who I'm picking to be finished 4th in this division, they might win the NFC South. That's that's kind of where they stand for me. So Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, Browns.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the more boring segments because I'm with you pretty much lockstep as far as where everyone's going to finish. I mean, I don't think I'm quite as bullish on the Steelers as you are. I think from what we've seen in training camp, neither quarterback has really stood out as a super viable option, which, I mean, on the one hand, Steelers haven't really invested a whole lot in the position, so it's kind of like playing with some house money if they do get some value there. On the other hand, you also get what you pay for when you're shopping around for that bargain bin solution at quarterback, trying to see is there a little more juice left in the tank for Russell Wilson? Can we maybe unlock a little something with Justin Fields, who showed great promise at Ohio State? Really good as a running quarterback, still has progression to make as a passing quarterback. Is there maybe value to be found there? If anybody can kind of unlock that situation, I think it's Mike Tomlin. I mean, he's certainly the reason why Justin Fields said, "Hey, Bears, you're going to trade me? Please trade me to the Pittsburgh Steelers," which the Bears were kind enough to oblige. I know Brandon Ayuk and his contract and trading and back and forth. Apparently, there were a couple of offers on the table from New England and I believe from Cleveland for Brandon Ayuk, and he said, no, can you maybe try to route me to Pittsburgh? At least this is some of the reporting that was going on behind the scenes. If anybody can get the most out of their players in this league, it's Mike Tomlin. That said, I've got the Steelers third. I will never pick Deshaun Watson to finish first for anything ever. I don't wish any ill upon him. I also don't have to wish any good things for him either. So that
What
leaves me
about
with the
Jameis
Bengals.
Winston coming in? Jameis Winston. Watson gets hurt. Famous Jameis, baby.
If you like watching pick sixes, go for it. No, I'm also going with the Baltimore Ravens to win the division. I mean, a team that has pretty much just gotten better from where they were last year, and they were a really high point last year. So it's not like they made huge leaps and bounds in
They
getting
had the
better.
best
But
record in the league, Tom, in the
when
AFC
you
Championship game.
when you replace Gus Edwards with Derrick Henry, I'd say that's an improvement. Even if Derrick Henry is diminished from where he was, and we saw him and like kind of like a 60-40, 55-45 split with Tyjae Spears last year for the Tennessee Titans.
Second in
I
rushing yards in the whole NFL.
I mean that doesn't okay. That doesn't mean what it used to mean though. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still very, very good, but this isn't like, your Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, Sean
No, I know
Alexander,
it's a
Curtis Martin.
different league. It's a
It,
two-back system. It's a passing league. Things are a lot
yeah.
different. But I'm just saying, like, it feels like everyone thinks Derrick Henry's done, and he was second in the league in rushing yards last year.
But past production doesn't necessarily mean future outcomes. And I understand that there is that concern of an age cliff. I also think that Derrick Henry is a rare human being who has the size and the capability of withstanding a long NFL career. I do think that he's probably not going to have as much rushing yards or as many rushing yards this season. I do see the Baltimore Ravens perhaps pacing him a little bit, mixing in some Justice Hill for some passing down stuff. Maybe they want to get a look at Rasheen Ali, Keaton Mitchell, whenever he comes back from that knee injury that he suffered late last season, if he's able to get on the field. I know he was a pretty explosive player that the Ravens are interested in looking at. So I think that Derrick Henry is still going to be very good. I think he's going to be used more situationally. He's not going to carry the same kind of workload basically that he was carrying earlier in the year. And I think that's smart football because you want him in December, in January, and if you're a Baltimore Ravens fan, you want him in February too. So I like the Baltimore Ravens a lot to win this division as well.
He's just a little bit like he won't be quite as good because he's a little bit older, but I think this is both for Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley this year, Tom. We'll get to the
Mm.
Barkley and the Eagles later. I think we're going to see what we saw with Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey, his last couple of years in Carolina, more injuries, even when he played, not as productive, goes to a new, better team, gets rejuvenated, and Christian McCaffrey had like historic numbers for running back last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to use Derrick Henry a lot more than you think. I think he'll be extremely productive. If Gus Edwards had 12 or 13 rushing touchdowns, I don't see why Derrick Henry doesn't get at least 15, because Lamar's got some injury
Oh, I'm with
issues.
you.
They don't really use Lamar much in the red zone necessarily. He's more of an open field runner. You know how much I like Derrick Henry. I've so far been in 2 fantasy leagues, and I have him in both of my leagues. So I
Now
am
we'll see if
all
it's
in on Derrick Henry.
we'll see if it's 3 for 3 for you this upcoming Sunday, if perhaps there's a little
Ooh.
snipage going on in the AFC South. This might be, let me just count really quickly. This
The
might be the
second
second
easiest
or
pick we
third.
make.
I think third actually.
Third,
I,
probably
I,
third.
I think we're going the same place in the West, but it's a pretty close third if we're being honest. Like I said, CJ Stroud's my pick to be the MVP. Kind of not a super strong, convincing argument if the MVP is on a second or third or fourth place team. I mean, the Titans, we'll see what they are. They seem to be the team that's trying to figure it out. They certainly have made some investments, picking up L'Jarius Sneed to help out on the defense, getting Calvin Ridley. They're going to try to see what they have in Will Levis, and if he is a legitimate quarterback of the future for them.
The Mayo
Uh,
Man.
and of course that also has they have DeAndre Hopkins returning this year as well. Tyjae Spears, they picked up Tony Pollard. So there has been some investment for the Tennessee Titans. I just don't know if it's enough to make them a special team. I don't think they're awful, but I don't think they're special. Indianapolis Colts, Anthony Richardson, I think he still has a good amount to prove as an NFL quarterback. I know fantasy community loves him. That's a whole different game that we're talking about there.
Yeah, this isn't fantasy. This is regular
Jonathan
football.
Jonathan Taylor is a really good running back for them, but do they have enough star power? Jacksonville Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence getting a huge extension, some
5 years,
additions
275.
there with Brian Thomas Jr. being their first round rookie pick. Gabriel Davis coming in, essentially trying to replace Calvin Ridley and go for a little bit more of some vertical deep passing routes to see if that can maybe unlock their former number one overall pick. And then, of course, there's the Houston Texans. So I think that's kind of the order I'm going in with the division from bottom to top. I know I already talked about the Texans, what they did on offense for adding to that comment. I think we're probably of a like mind on this one. How do you see this division playing out?
Yeah, Texans are like almost even money as the favorite in the division. I mean, first off, they won the division last year. They won a
Hmm.
playoff game last year. They added Stephon Diggs, who's one of the best receivers in the league. He's only 30. I mean, with the modern medicine in the NFL and just sports in general, we were seeing guys play at a high level for longer ages across sports. If you listen to some people out there talking about Diggs, it's as if he's like 37 years old. Yes, he's a diva, but he's a terrific wide receiver, and he's only 30, Tom. He's not 38. He's 30. Come on now. The Texans roster is absolutely stacked. Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Dalton Schultz. They added also an upgrade at running back, which you mentioned, Joe Mixon. They have one of the best coaches in the league. I actually watched, I think it was the Pat McAfee show. They had
Hmm.
the general manager on of the Texans, and the way he spoke about D'Amico Ryans was unbelievable. This guy, I mean, he might be a top 2 or 3 coach in the league, and he's a defensive coach. Their offense is so stacked, and they have him to lead the defense with Will Anderson Jr. I mean, Houston has an incredible team. They're
Picked
the
up
betting
Daniil Hunter.
favorite. Yeah, exactly. They're
Hmm.
only getting better on both sides of the ball. So Houston's my pick to win it. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go Jacksonville number 2. I do like Trevor Lawrence. I think the Jaguars are going to be battling for a wild card spot. They're a good football team. I think they're a playoff team in the NFC South, but they're like, for them, they're not in the NFC South. They're in the AFC South. I think he's got some good weapons around him. I think Trevor Lawrence had injuries last year. It's hard to play injured. They'll be competing with the Texans, but I think Jackson will get second in the division. Third place, the Colts. I agree with you, lockstep. I love Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is a terrific running back, top 5 in the league when healthy. Personally, Tom, it's just a gut feeling. I don't think Anthony Richardson is it, personally.
Mm.
I think we have, in the modern NFL, running quarterbacks, a lot of really good running quarterbacks, but you have to be a serviceable passer. You cannot just be a running quarterback, which we saw with Justin Fields. What happens when you're a running quarterback? Nobody wants you as just a running quarterback. A lot of the best quarterbacks in the league, they run to pass. What does Patrick Mahomes do? He runs to pass the
Hmm.
ball. What did Russell Wilson do when he was in his prime? He ran to pass the ball. What does Caleb Williams do? He runs to pass the ball. Anthony Richardson is one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks in the National Football League. He will be a below average starting quarterback. If you factor in his running, with what a threat he is running, I'm not going to say he's a bottom 7 or 8 quarterback, but he's a bottom 15 quarterback in the league. And if your team is just okay around a bottom 15 quarterback, you're not a playoff team. I do not believe in Anthony Richardson personally. Seems like a terrific guy. Hear a lot of
Hmm.
good things about him. I'm not wishing ill upon anybody, but just based on the accuracy and what I've seen and what some teammates have said reportedly about him and opposing teams as well passing the ball, I don't think anybody's taking him seriously as a passer, and you cannot be only a running quarterback. So I put the Colts in third. I think you gave Tennessee a little bit too much love. I
Yeah.
think Tennessee is a pretty bad football team. I would say the best thing they had going about them is Mike Vrabel, one of the best coaches in the league. It was for 5, 6 years. He helped them overachieve. They got rid of Mike Vrabel. As Taylor Swift says in her song, karma is a blank, blankety blank. It's going to be karma for Tennessee. They will be one of the worst teams in the league this year. Look for them to be a top 5 pick in the draft next year. I don't know what the trades are. I don't know if they have any, what the deals are, but they'll have a bottom 5 record in the league. Even in the mediocre to bad AFC South, I look at Tennessee as like a 5-4 win team.
Hmm.
Not good at all. Houston is shooing for the division. I would say Chiefs, I am most confident in the division. Probably 49ers second, or Lions, or probably 49ers second, Texans third. If I'm going the most
Yeah.
confident division winners, I think Houston is in a great spot, which is crazy because we're thinking about the Texans and the Lions being shoo-ins to win the divisions. This is 2024. You told me this 10 years ago, I would have thought you're insane, Tom
2 years
Casselman.
ago.
What
two
what a
years
world we
ago,
live in. What a
yeah.
world we live in. One more note about the Texans.
Yep.
I look at the AFC North. I look at the AFC East. Those divisions are absolutely loaded. Then you look at the Kansas City Chiefs schedule. Their division is not great, but their non-divisional opponents, the schedule they have, they play the Bengals, they play the
Hmm.
Ravens, they play the Niners, they play all these really good teams. Kansas City never gets a break with the schedule. So Houston Texans have a chance to get the 1 seed or the 2 seed. Uh, I think the Chiefs and Ravens are a little bit better football teams. I think even the Bengals might be a little bit better team, but because of schedule, I think Houston has a real chance to get the
Hmm.
1 or 2 seed. And if they can somehow get the number 1 overall seed
That's
and
huge.
host a couple playoff games and maybe get to the AFC Championship game, that would be insane. So that's a sleeper team, not as a massive sleeper team, but that's like a dangerous team based on schedule and seeding when it comes to the playoffs. Because if you get the 1 seed, you get a bye and you get home field advantage. That's pretty important.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of home field advantage, a team that I think is a little bit more likely. I can't believe that I'm giving more credit to the Chiefs than you are. I think that they're, I don't know, lock is necessarily the word,
I
but
said Chiefs most likely.
okay. Okay, so you
Texans
did
too.
because I think that
They're
I don't even
minus
know
300 if you go to Vegas.
I don't even know if it's worth necessarily ranking out Chargers and Raiders and Broncos as 2, 3, 4. I don't see any of those teams as playoff teams, as wild card teams.
Agreed.
I could see them all being, 5 and 12. they're all tied for second to fourth. Like there's these teams. I know it sounds awful, but like I kind of sort of don't really care. Like we're talking about, the Denver Broncos trying to make Bo Nix a thing as their starting quarterback. I don't really know what else they have going on there.
I don't hate Bo Nix
The
personally,
the
but
Raiders, Gardner Minshew, nice story, nice career for him, but he's
not
not
as a
really an
starter.
answer at quarterback. Devontae Adams, I feel kind of awful for Devontae Adams. He's like, hey, I want to go play with my friend, my college teammate, Derek Carr. We're going to be, in Oakland. I think they were still in Oakland at the time, and then they're like, no, we're moving the team. We're trading away your friend, and we're not going to replace him with a good quarterback.
He's
The
getting
Raiders,
traded.
I just don't think that the Raiders are a particularly strong team. I think Antonio Pierce is kind of closer to like the Mike Tomlin mold of getting the most out of what he has, but he's not the same caliber as Mike Tomlin, and neither is his roster. So I think we're just going to kind of end up with a middling to bottom feeder team. And then the LA Chargers, I feel like they're kind of as similar sort of the Michigan Wolverines, if we're going to draw that parallel with Harbaugh as their coach. A team that has some high aspirations, certainly hasn't come close to meeting them for a while. It's going to take a little bit of time for him to build up the program, so to speak, for that team, I think, to be a legitimate contender as well. So it's Chiefs by far and away. I know we've already talked about Patrick Mahomes as an MVP candidate. We've talked about the additions that they've made on the offensive side of the football. Certainly losing L'Jarius Sneed hurts on the defensive side. They got to backfill with roster depth and filling in that way. But I think as far as winning the division, I think the Chiefs are the clearest cut winner by a fairly decent margin. I know their
Yeah.
counterpart in the NFC West is probably likewise going to be a pick for us, but the NFC West at least is going to have some representative competition, let's say,
Yeah,
for
they'll
the
have a playoff
49ers.
team
But
besides them.
it's going to be the Chiefs as it has been. This is the modern day New England Patriot, basically.
Yeah, you look at the Chiefs, they're anywhere from minus 250 to minus 300 online. They've won 8 straight division titles. Patrick Mahomes added Juju Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown, and Xavier Worthy. 3 receivers in the offseason. Travis Kelce gets back and healthy. They're a really good team. I know they're losing Snead, but McDuffie's really good. And they're
Hmm.
keeping Chris Jones. If they had to choose between Snead and Chris Jones as a Chiefs fan,
Jones.
you're taking Chris Jones any day, the D tackle. It is a no-brainer. I agree with you, Tom. I think all 3 of the other teams are under 500. I don't know if it's going to be 5 wins. I can see some of them winning 6 to 8, maybe.
I mean, they got to play each other, so
I
yeah.
do really like Harbaugh. I really like Herbert. I think they're probably the second team in the division, but not a wild card team. I mean, they lost Keenan Allen, they lost Mike Williams, they lost Gerald Everett, they lost Austin Eckler, they lost their top 2 receivers, their top tight end, and their top running back. I get what they were doing, clearing house, going for the future. They should have kept somebody, though. You can't
Mm.
leave your quarterback with nobody. I watched part of the Charger
They got
preseason
Lad.
game. They dropped like every catch. So I like the Chargers long term. I think that's a team that as they add more receivers in the years to come, Harbaugh and Herbert could be a good combo. But Harbaugh and Herbert have nothing to work with in LA, quite frankly. They're going to be my second pick only because they have the second best quarterback and the second best coach in the division. But yeah, I agree. Like their ceiling is like 8 wins, maybe 9. I think the Raiders and Broncos, same deal. That's 6 to 8 range. Maybe if the ball bounces right, you get the 9 wins. But I don't think we have a wild card team out of the AFC West. Not this year, at least.
Yeah, I'm of course right there with you on that. Let's move over to the NFC
Well,
now.
do you want to do the? I was going to do the wild cards first for
Oh,
AFC.
we can do wild
You
cards
want
for
to do it
AFC.
that way since we
Sure,
talked
yeah.
about the AFC plenty? Is
Yeah,
that good with
let's
you?
jump into it. So let's go back and forth on this, or do you want to just do all 3 at the same time?
No, let's go back and forth. And why don't we?
Okay.
Do you want to do it in as far as the one we're most confident in?
Sure. Yeah, because
Let's do it that
the
way.
one in which I'm most confident is the Cincinnati Bengals. I know that they play in a really tough division. I know that Joe Burrow had a couple of injuries last year, but from what we've been seeing out of camp reports, he's looking good throwing the football. That wrist injury doesn't seem to be hampering him. I mean, Jamar Chase, it'd be nice if he got back into action and got at least a week of practice in heading into the start of the season, but we know that this is Joe Burrow's guy. They played together to exceptional accomplishment
National
at the
titles.
collegiate level. So I think that, their rhythm is going to be there. It's just going to be a matter of, kind of like gameplay condition for Jamar Chase. You have T. Higgins, who is going to be playing the season on the franchise tender, which means he really has to go and show out if he wants to get a big money deal. We're kind of reaching bigger picture here. A bit of an inflection point in the wide receiver market where there are so many good receivers, it might start creeping into running back territory where you don't necessarily have to pay big money to keep good receivers around. You can simply try to draft one or replace one a little bit on the cheap. So T. Higgins is playing for a lot to prove that he has a big role, not maybe not on this team, but on the next team. And of course, Zach Taylor is the coach. He's been a really, really good coach for him, getting to the AFC Championship game, getting to a Super Bowl. I think that the Bengals usually, as per usual, have been greater than the sum of their parts, and they have some really, really good parts. I think the Bengals are my most confident AFC wildcard team.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Of course, we won't know for sure, but my gut feeling is that this Jamar Chase situation will get resolved. There was
Mhm.
rumors about Justin Jefferson, not coming. He gets signed a contract. He's there. CD Lamb, signed the contract. He's there. I agree. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow are boys. Jamar Chase is trying to play this to the deadline, and maybe that little bit of chemistry, a little bit of that like off-season rust, maybe that keeps him from winning the division. But I think they're a good enough team over 17 games. Let's not forget the Bengals are notorious bad starters. They're a team that finishes strong
Mhm.
at the end of the year every single year. Arguably, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, arguably, as far as great quarterback and great receiver, they're the best combo in the league, right? Josh Allen lost his guy. Patrick Mahomes has a lot of really good guys. I mean, certainly Kelsey is a tight end, but he's just a little bit older. As far as elite level quarterback, elite level wide receiver, there probably is not a better duo in the National Football League. And these guys know each other in and out, right? LSU, national champs together. They had the 60 passing touchdowns for Burrow, the college record. And what's crazy is I think he loves Jamar Chase because at LSU, Jamar Chase had better numbers than Justin Jefferson. That is
Hmm.
unique chemistry. He pushed for Chase to get drafted. He got drafted. So Bengals defense is interesting because that's the perfect example of the sum of their parts is better because their defense doesn't have massive star power. Hendrickson certainly is pretty good, but otherwise a bunch of like average guys, but they end up being a pretty good defense. So obviously, if the Bengals win the division, I would pick the Ravens to get the wild card. But the loser of the North, which we have as the Bengals, the most likely team to get a wild card spot out of the AFC. Agreed. Give me the Bengals. Who's your number two most likely?
Number two, this is where it's going to be a little bit of a surprise. I'm going with
Mm,
Jacksonville. I'm going with the Jaguars
okay.
as my second most confident wild card team. I think that, I mean, they're a better team than the Colts. They're a better team than the Titans. I think those are two teams that they can get not necessarily easy wins because no division team win is really super duper easy, especially because I think that those are some decent teams. But I think this is a year where Trevor Lawrence takes another step forward. We saw a lot of missed opportunities. And as somebody who had Trevor Lawrence on multiple fantasy football teams, I was almost literally pulling my hair out every time he threw a touchdown pass, except the receiver's foot landed just so slightly on the line or hit the
Uh,
stanchion or something. There was just like a lot of weird things that seemed to happen with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have a really good head coach in Doug Peterson, Super Bowl champion Doug Peterson.
Fairly
I
special.
think that they have the investment in Trevor Lawrence. They invested in the weapons around him. I know Calvin Ridley. They took a chance on him coming after a year off
They
from
bet on
football.
him, pun
They
intended.
they bet on Calvin Ridley, but certainly not to the tune of the 4-year, $92 million contract that he signed in Tennessee. But spending a first round pick on Brian Thomas Jr., who had a phenomenal season at LSU, bringing in Gabriel Davis, who's a bit of a home run or bust player, but again, like I was saying, pushing the ball downfield. I think that's very much what they want to do. Stretch the field deep with those guys on the outside. You've got Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne to be kind of those shorter intermediary routes. I think that the Jacksonville Jaguars are certainly primed on offense, and I think they have enough on defense to be a wild card worthy team. I think that they're a step below a Super Bowl contender by any stretch of the imagination, but I certainly think to make the playoffs, this can definitely be the year for the Jaguars to do so.
Yeah, they got the other Josh Allen on defense. He's an
Hmm.
absolute beast. Yeah, Jacksonville, Tom, by the way, is like a hodgepodge of about six teams I have fighting for three wild card spots. I think, I look at Jacksonville, I look at the Bengals, I look at the two AFC East runner-ups, I look at the Steelers. Those are what, five teams? Jaguars, Steelers, Bengals, Dolphins, and Jets. That's five teams for three spots. That's how I look at it. Obviously, like I mentioned, AFC East is wide open. If the Bills don't happen to win the East like I have them, they would be in that wild card mix. I'm going to say my second most likely playoff team is going to be the AFC East runner-up, which for me will be the Miami Dolphins.
There
There's
you
the close
go.
one, right? Dolphins and Jets. That was a big question mark. Bills, Dolphins, and Jets, all three about equally even. But I love Miami's offense. The Miami's offense is so good. Actually, last year, Tom, Jalen Waddle missed a lot of time through injury. They didn't have Jalen Waddle the whole year. Even Tyreek Hill missed a couple games through injury. Devon Achane was a rookie, emerged late in the year. I know he's going to miss the beginning of the season, but Odell Beckham Jr. as a number three wide receiver piece, a veteran piece, I thought was a good addition as well. I love their head coach. I definitely believe in Tua. I think he's a terrific quarterback. Probably the most underrated quarterback in the league, in my opinion, Tua for Miami. He's a borderline top five guy. I mean, I think the gap between 4 and 8 is very small. Like if you put Tua as a top five quarterback, I'm not laughing at you. I think a
Mhm.
lot of people would laugh at that statement, Tom. I am a team Tua all the way. So give me Miami. They have probably the best overall offense in the league. It's an offensive league. I know last year the defense saw a little bit of a comeback, but more or less it's an offensive driven league. It's a quarterback league. It's a receiver league. It's a star power league. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane. You know what those guys have? You can prepare all you want on tape, but they have speed. You can't teach speed, and oftentimes you cannot defend speed. That explosive Miami Dolphin offense gets them as that second wild card spot. Give me the Fins, baby.
Interesting, because I'm going with the team that I think is the second place team in the AFC East. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills, and I'm not going to knock the Miami Dolphins.
This is
This
your
is a
third
team.
spot.
Yes, this is my third and final spot.
Yeah.
I have the Miami Dolphins on the outside looking in.
Okay.
Um, I I can't help but feel as if not necessarily fluky being the correct word, but I feel they're a little bit lopsided. They can put up points with anybody in the NFL, but the thing is, there's a lot of teams that can do that, and when you're playing that brand of football, you're leaving a little bit too much up to variance of who has the ball last, perhaps determining the outcome of the game. We saw what happened to them against the Kansas City Chiefs. That was a really uninspiring performance for a wild card team. It was
Oh,
a cold, windy
luckily, they
day.
won't play in that much cold weather games throughout the season.
Well, no, but I think that says something about the team where like it borderline seemed like they didn't want to be there.
Have you
And
heard the thing where their
yeah.
coach McDaniel it's like 24 years since they won a playoff game or something, or was it one of the divisions? Something like I think it was playoff game. 24
Mhm.
years since a playoff game, and he has all the team meetings at the 24 hour, like 5:24, 2:24, 3:24, using that
I
as a
remember
motivational tactic. Did
I
you hear about that? It's
really
kind of funny.
I didn't know, but I mean that just another reason why I really like Mike McDaniel as a coach, and this is a rare instance where I'm picking against a coach that I really like. But it's just the Dolphins. Christian Wilkerson, their start offensive tackle, he is in Las Vegas now. I don't think they necessarily really replaced him on defense. Like I said, I think they're a little bit too lopsided. Whereas with the Bills, I think they're strong on both sides of the football. I don't think they're necessarily as special. I understand that they had a really good record after they made the switch to Joe Brady as their offensive coordinator. That coincided with Stephon Diggs' production dropping off. And so some people could look at that and say, well, Diggs wasn't really a big loss for them anyway, that this is more of a Josh Allen production. I just think that they're putting a little bit too much on him, and I think that they are in too tough of a division and too tough of a conference to say to do that and expect to be a top 2, 3, 4 seed team. I've got them as the last team in for the playoffs. I guess that's really all I have to say about that. Pulling off of Forrest Gump here, Common, who is your last team that is making it into the playoffs? You hinted at a couple of different ones. I'm interested in
Yeah.
seeing.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go bold on this one. I tend to be kind of chalkish, me with my picks, but I gotta throw in a bold one. I'm picking the
Hmm.
team that was projected to finish last in the division, according to the Vegas betting lines. And that would be the
Okay,
Pittsburgh Steelers,
sure.
projected to finish last in the AFC North. And it almost feels weird to say that this is an upset pick because let's not forget the Pittsburgh Steelers were in the playoffs last year. The Pittsburgh Steelers are in the playoffs almost every single season. I know they have not been a playoff contender or Super Bowl contender since really at least about 5, 6, 7 years, at least since Big Ben retired, right?
Mhm.
They've been barely getting in the playoffs or barely missing out. They had Kenny Pickett as their starting quarterback last year. Say what you will about Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is one of the smartest quarterbacks in the National Football League. 21-5 touchdown to pick ratio last year, one of the best in the league. They have a good running game. They have a really good defense. He does not have to be Pro Bowl Hall of Fame Russell Wilson. He
Hmm.
just has to manage the game and throw the ball to George Pickens. TJ Watt and Mike Tomlin will take care of the rest. Pittsburgh goes 10-7, and in classic Steeler fashion, they win some sort of tiebreaker and get in the playoffs. That's just how it's going to be. Really, it should be the Jets. Again, I'm picking the Jets to finish third in the division, even though they have the most talented roster, probably the third or fourth most talented roster in the AFC. Some people say the best. I mean, it's definitely, I would say, definitely a top 3 team talent
Hmm.
wise in the conference. But the Steelers seem to always get things to go right for them as far as at least the regular season goes. The Jets always seem to see things go wrong for them because it's between the Jets, Steelers, and the Jaguars for my last spot. Jacksonville is the same way, like you were just talking about. A yard out of bounds, foot out of bounds,
Hmm.
inch here, inch there. As Al Pacino says in the great movie, Any Given Sunday. Have you seen it, Tom? Oh, I gotta just send you the speech. It's one of the best speeches I've ever heard in movie or real life history. Life in football is a matter of inches. You scrap for every inch, blah, blah, blah. It's just the inches are all around us. Classic Al Pacino line.
Oh,
I'll definitely
sure.
be sending that to you after the show. Uh, it always seems to not go the Jets or the Jaguars way. The Dolphins too, by the way, they're the same way. But I think they have that talented offense. I'm gonna pick the Steelers to get in as my final team, just because I got to break up my chalk predictions somewhere.
Hmm.
But I think definitely between uh, Dolphins, Bills, and Jets, one wins the division. The other two are both wild card potential. I look at the Bengals and Steelers, wild card potential. The Jaguars, wild card potential. But somebody's got to get in. I'm going to be different than you. I'm going to be bold. Bengals, Dolphins, Steelers all make the playoffs as the wild card teams. Chiefs, Texans, Ravens, and Bills as division winners.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be fun to see. I think certainly the stronger of the two conferences, the deeper the two conferences
Yes.
play out.
Yes.
Switching over to the NFC now, we're going to start off with the NFC East. Do we have our first repeat NFC champion since what was that, 2004, the 2003 and 2004 Philadelphia Eagles back in the Andy Reid and Donovan
19
McNabb
years.
heyday? Been a
19 years.
long,
I
long
think you're right.
time.
Oh 04, oh 05.
Yeah, so it was the Cowboys last year as the Eagles got off to a rip-roaring start
And
and
an
then
ice
just
cold finish.
absolutely petered out toward the end of the season. Certainly some changes for both teams, probably more so for the Eagles than for the Cowboys. Uh, and of course, there's still the Giants and the Commanders, although Kamen, let's be perfectly honest. Are we looking at either of these two teams that we're picking in the top 10 as legitimate division contenders? I say nay. Who do you have coming out of the NFC East?
Yeah, 19 straight years of rotating champions. I like streaks. I believe streaks are made to continue, not to be broken because they're fun. I say 20. Why not 20? This is going to be a very, very tight division. Eagles and Cowboys are roughly evenly matched teams. I'm going to pick the Eagles. I think last year, a lot of people don't really talk about this, and that's just the way it works. Excuses, excuses, excuses. But what Patrick Mahomes did in the playoffs 2 years ago was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in sports because he played through an injury and dominated. If you Michael Jordan's done the same thing, the flu game. The truly all-time greats will find a way. But I would say even about 98% of athletes, even if you're like a top 2 or 3% guy at what you do, playing injured is not going to work. Joe Burrow playing injured last year did not work. Jalen Hurts playing injured last year did not work. A lot of people will say that Jalen Hurts had a really rough year last year. I say this, Tom, before he got hurt the first half of the year last year, he was a legitimate MVP candidate. I think a healthy Jalen Hurts will make a massive difference in Philadelphia. I look at what the Eagles did in the draft. Their secondary last year was atrocious. They went out there and got secondary help in the draft. They already have a really good defensive line. That's a team that was in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. So I like the Eagles to finish a little bit ahead of the Cowboys. And a big reason why, by the way, Saquon Barkley. I have a stat for you, Tom. It's a stat I saw online. It's more of a question.
Oh, okay.
What two quarterbacks in the league last year had the highest sack percentage rate in the National Football League?
Sack
Sacked on the
percentage
highest
rate.
percent of dropbacks.
I feel like I remember looking at this because that's almost a bigger indicator of team success than interceptions are. And I think Dak Prescott was one of them. Was Sam Howell the other?
No, it was Tommy DeVito and Daniel Jones, both quarterbacks for the New York Giants. I actually think those other two guys might have been somewhere on that list. I want to say
Mhm.
Sam Howell might have been like third,
I think he may
but
have been sacked the most times, but I think what you're saying with percentages, because
percentage
both
of
Jones and DeVito
dropbacks
missed
because
time.
they
Yeah, that makes
DeVito
sense.
and also Tyrod Taylor played, so it was
Hmm.
a quarterback carousel. But it was percentage of dropbacks, I believe, is a stat I saw.
Sure.
The highest sack quarterback on dropbacks was Tommy DeVito, and number two was Daniel Jones. What does that say about the New York Giants? They have an atrocious offensive line, probably the worst in the league. And you have Saquon Barkley having to play in front of that offensive line. Now, I know Jason Kelsey retired, but the
Hmm.
Philadelphia Eagles, even with Jason Kelsey retiring, have one of the very best offensive lines in football. Saquon Barkley, who, by the way, 2 years ago, Tom, was top 5 in the league in rushing yards. Injury concerns are valid. But if Saquon Barkley can stay healthy with that offensive line, I see a CMC type season out of him.
Hmm.
CMC was rejuvenated with the Panthers. Saquon Barkley will be with the Eagles. He's a great pass catcher. He's a great runner of the ball. Jalen Hurts injuries. Jason Kelsey gone. I think we'll see less tush push. I think they'll use it if they really need it. But I think a lot of these 3rd-and-1 carries will go to Saquon Barkley, who's a little bit more of a bulky back than DeAndre Swift. I think Saquon Barkley might be the 2nd best running back in the league this year. I look at Saquon and Derrick Henry, both to be a top 2 or 3 running back in the league. I think Saquon Barkley makes enough of a difference. I know Dallas got CeeDee Lamb back. I know there's some crazy trade rumors if you follow Bears Twitter about Micah Parsons coming to the Bears. I don't buy them for a second, but I like Philadelphia's squad. Give me the Eagles to get to first place. The Cowboys will get a wild card spot. I like the Commanders to be 3rd. I do like Jaden Daniels. I think he's a really good quarterback, a good pickup for them. Terry McLaurin is solid. I think the Commanders might surprise some people in that they get it to be about 500. I'm not saying a playoff team, but I look at them as like a 8 to 9 win team possibly this year. And I think the Giants, there's always a fluke team. 2 years ago, it was the Giants. Last year, it was the Browns. Last year, the Giants went back to reality. It'll be more of the same this year. Giants finish in the cellar. Maybe next year when they get a top 5 pick, do they go quarterback or offensive line? Because they got 2 massive areas they need to improve on. They got a receiver, but they don't have, and now they lost Saquon. They have nobody else on that offense. It's Malik Neighbors and who? Even Darren Waller retired. Not that he was good anymore, but he was probably the best guy they had with getting rid of Saquon, and he's gone as well. So
now,
Giants, atrocious. Eagles win the division. The boys get 2nd, and Cowboy fans lose their mind. They probably ship Dak Prescott out of town, which is not fair at all to Dak Prescott, but that's the way it works in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one. I mean, I'm just really impressed with what the Eagles have done. Howie Roseman, fantastic in adding talent all around that defense, which kind of fell off. But I mean, that was because their secondary lost a step. And like you said, that's exactly where the Philadelphia Eagles put a lot of their draft capital investment in bolstering up this team. So I think that Eagles are my pick. They were my pick last year. I thought it was not necessarily a fluky finish for them, but it was certainly jarring and abnormal the way that their season went out. I don't think that they're going to have that for this second go around, and I think that there's a clear delta between them and the Cowboys, which I think Cowboys are good enough to make it a competition for the NFC East. Clear delta between the top 2 and bottom 2 teams in this particular division. I can definitely see us picking the team that doesn't win the division is going to be a wild card team. We'll move to our beloved NFC North, where we have
hold on. We got a jersey
I'm holding on. Jersey swap in the middle of the show.
Now, Tom, I bought this jersey before we drafted Caleb Williams. So I'll be buying a Caleb Williams jersey soon. But I got the greatest bear ever, Walter Payton. So we got to switch the jersey for the Bears pick here.
Go for it. So hang on. With all of this preamble and prelude, are you telling me, Kamen and Entchev, that you are going for the worst to first? Are you telling me, Kamen, that you have the Chicago Bears winning this division?
I want to.
Well, so do I.
I'm loving the preseason. I'm loving the Hard Knocks. I have a stat for you, by the way, Tom.
Go for it.
A meaningless statistic. Absolutely meaningless.
The best kind.
But just a fun fact. The last 6 teams that finished with the preseason point differential of plus 60 have all made the playoffs and 2 made the Super Bowl. The Bears at plus 68. So I know you don't put stock in preseason, but those are facts, Tom.
I do not.
Those are facts. All right.
Well, I put some stock. I put some stock into the preseason because that's where a lot of 2s and 3s are playing, and so they can be indicative.
The Bears have the best backups in the league, baby.
Something along those lines, yes.
Let's go. I mean, the best backup quarterback, Tyson Bagent, that's for sure. Long live Tyson. He's the real deal. A lot of rumors that a lot of teams in the NFL are going to be calling him to be a starting quarterback. That's the rumors on the.
if teams want to pay that sort of price for Tyson Bagent, I am sure the Bears would have no issues in obliging
All
them.
right. Well, let me get into
So
this division because this
let's
is
get into the division.
this
Yes,
is this is a division that top to bottom is the best division in the NFC and probably the second best division in all of football. Depends on where
I
you
gotta
land
disagree. Yeah,
with the
I gotta say,
Patriots. I think this division has I went back and forth between 2 and 3 wild card picks. I still have not solidified my third and final NFC wild card pick. I still have written down as to be determined, Tom, and my heart might make that call at the last minute. Maybe I'll do devil's advocate to disagree with you.
all
But there
right,
is the
well,
potential for 3 playoff teams in this division, and the Minnesota Vikings are my 4th place finish.
mhm.
I think they're a good football team. I really do. I know JJ McCarthy is going to be out for the season. I know Sam Darnold has not worked out well, but Sam Darnold played quarterback for some pretty bad football teams.
He's in the
I
best
know
situation of his
the
career. Yeah,
best situation of his career. I mean, Niners as a backup, the best situation where he
Mm.
starts.
Yeah.
So Justin Jefferson is the second best receiver in the league behind Tyreek Hill, and he's a close second. We have Jordan Addison is really good.
Mm.
TJ Hawkinson is really good. They're a well-coached team. Again, Minnesota Vikings could compete to win the NFC South, but they're my 4th place finish in the NFC North. First place, I'm going to go with the Lions. I'm sorry. I pulled out the Bears jersey, but I'm going to go with the best team in the division. Here's a number that you're going to love this number.
hmm
The Detroit Lions, out of a 17-game season, play 14 games inside a dome this year.
Yep.
Jared Goff is one of the best dome quarterbacks in the league. The Jared Goff dome versus non-dome stats are different. Not only
Mhm.
is it 14 out of 17, it's 14 of the first 15 games. The Lions play inside a dome. They played the Packers and the Bears on the road, and I believe one other team not inside a dome. Their offense is stacked. They have 2 really good running backs, Gibbs and Montgomery. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who might be a top 5 receiver in the league. They have Sam Laporta, who's probably a top 5 tight end in the league. They have a great coach who brings a lot of energy. Their defense is led by Aiden Hutchinson, one of the best young pass rushers in the NFL. Their one weakness was the secondary. They went out and got Terrion Arnold in the first round. Great cornerback out of Alabama. I have one rule when it comes to defensive players in the NFL draft. If they have played at Alabama or Georgia in the last 7 or 8 years, you take them every time and you don't question anything because Kirby Smart and Nick Saban know defense. So if there's a first-round pick out of Alabama and Georgia for defense, about 90% success rate, you take those guys. Lions are going to win the NFC North. They're the top team. They have the best schedule. It sets up perfectly for them. They're in the North. This is where it gets very, very interesting. The second and third place finishes between the Bears and Packers, because this could be the second place team will definitely get a wild card in the NFC. The third place team, we'll see. This is tough, Tom. This is very tough. First off, Ryan Poles, you're amazing. You've done a great job with this Bears team. You have picked off in the offseason Caleb Williams, who is one of the best college quarterbacks I've ever seen. You added Rome Odunze, a top 3 college receiver last year. You added Keenan Allen, who's been a top 5 to 10 receiver now for the last 7 years when healthy. You added Gerald Everett to go with Cole Kmet. You added DeAndre Swift, who finished top 5 in rushing yards last year. Great pass catcher, great running back. And you still have Khalil Herbert, I believe, on the team as well as your backup running back. You have a defense that looked really good last year. Jalen Johnson looks really good in the offseason. That's a really good Bears squad. On paper, this is the deepest and most talented Bears offensive unit ever. On paper. They are that good. even better than the Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey era, better than Walter Payton, because, Walter Payton was Walter Payton. He was the whole offense. This team is really good across the board. Caleb Williams has a lot of hype. Another quarterback with a lot of hype, Tom, is Jordan Love. Some general managers think he could be the MVP this year. Now, you look at the second half of last year, statistically, he was the best quarterback in the National Football League. He finished second in the league in passing touchdowns total, but I believe he had the best passer rating the second half of last year. Now, the Packers' offense is very, very interesting because they have Jaden Reed, they have Romeo Doubs, they have Christian Watson. They have a ton of number 2 wide receivers, but not a single number 1. So it's like, what's better, having a bunch of really good guys, or do you want that one established guy? They added Josh Jacobs in the backfield, who was 2 years ago the NFL leader in rushing yards. Last year, Josh Jacobs faced the most 10-man boxes in the whole league. You wonder why his production dipped? Because everybody tried to stop just him. Both the Bears and Packers have really good defenses. Both were really good last year, and both on paper should be really good this year. The two teams are very evenly matched for me. Maybe I'm going to go a little bit heart over head, but I'm going to pick the Bears to get second ahead of the Packers. And I think the Bears' offensive weapons are better than the Green Bay Packers. I know they have a lot of good guys in Green Bay, but is Jaden Reed one? Is Christian Watson one? Because I could sit there and argue with you that Jaden Reed or Christian Watson would be the 4th best receivers on the Bears roster. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze. Jordan Love, I hate to say this, terrific quarterback. Caleb Williams, terrific quarterback. Caleb Williams has better weapons. He's got better teammates around him. Give me the Bears. Second place in the North. I'll go ahead and spill the beans anyway. I'll get ahead of it. Wild card spot for the Bears this year. Back in the playoffs, baby. Bears were 7-10 last year, Tom. They had was it 3 double-digit blown leads in the fourth quarter? If they didn't blow those 3 leads, they could have been 10-7. They got better receivers. They got a better quarterback. They got a better running back. They got a better team, period. Bears, second in the North. Packers in third place. They'll be fighting for the final wild card spot. Whether I pick the Packers and 3 NFC North teams to make the playoffs, stay tuned for a little bit later in the show.
I'm going to go with a little bit of what I've seen with the proof in the pudding, so to speak. I think the Vikings, unfortunate injury to JJ McCarthy, I agree with you. They're probably the last place team, although if we're going up and down this list, they might be, I think they probably could be the strongest last place team in this division, in the league.
Yes.
I'm going to go with the Lions as well.
North, but go ahead.
Yeah, but again, I don't wish any good things for Deshaun Watson or the Cleveland Browns. So I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions to win the North. You gave all the ancillary information there as far as being a dome team. The home road or the inside-outside splits with Jared Goff are glaring, to say the least. He is almost literally a completely different quarterback when you take him and put him into the fresh air as opposed to in a dome, a controlled setting. I think that, good for him being in a situation that is catered to what he likes to do. He's got all of the coaching staff. I know Ben Johnson is a perennial, head coach contestant, or candidate rather would be a much better word, because of what he has done with making this offense as potent as it is. They have a phenomenal offensive line. Aiden Hutchinson anchoring that defensive line. I'm all about trenches as far as building up a team, which is why I like the Eagles. It's why I like the Lions a lot as far as being a good football team. With the Green Bay Packers, I'm going to have them second over the Bears. I really do, of course, as a fan, want to see the Bears win every single game. But as far as what we saw the Packers do last year, we saw Jordan Love start out strong, struggle, and within the same season overcome that struggle. That's a learning curve that we don't often see. And with Caleb Williams, I think he is, I believe every good thing that everybody has been saying about him. I have no reason to doubt that he will not be the best quarterback in Bears franchise history. It's a low bar, but even if it
Very
were a
low.
medium to relatively high bar, he has the talent to be one of those quarterbacks. This is something that as Bears fans we have never ever seen in our collective lifetimes. I think it's a little, I want to temper expectations on seeing that right away. I think that CJ Stroud kind of broke the mold a little bit with his rookie season. I
Herbert,
think
Mahomes, a lot of guys recently are having big rookie years.
Justin Herbert, yes. I mean, Mahomes technically second year player. I know that he sat the first year, but he had a little bit more experience heading into that second year of simply, going through all the motions of being a pro. It's a steep learning curve. I mean, Caleb Williams and listening to him talk, I believe everything about his talent and his ability. I think that there's going to be a real-time learning curve. I think there's going to be some bumps along the way. I do have a little bit of concern about the offensive and defensive line depth and overall talent. I think that the Bears are a year away from being division contender, Super Bowl contender. I think the big picture, the Bears are right on the doorstep. I think this is a year where 9-8, 10-7, good progress on what they've done. I think they have to show progress over what they have done because they are better this year than they have been any previous years. So I do think that they need to have a winning record in order to be able to claim progress. I don't think 8-9 cuts it. 7-10 and worse certainly does not cut it. But as far as the Packers go, I want to give one quick shout out to Matt LaFleur. Really good head coach, and he's proven that now with multiple quarterbacks and ushering them along. Really good as an offensive coach. And while the Green Bay Packers don't necessarily have a number one receiver, receiver's kind of one of those positions where you don't necessarily need that. If you have four like really, like good to above average guys, you can make an offense with that. So I think that the Packers, I take them just ever so slightly above the Bears because of course they're proven. They mollywopped the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs. I need to see it out of the Bears before I can pick them to be any higher than third in this division. But I certainly think that the arrow is pointing way, way up for them, and really excited to see what they do this season. We'll move now
Real quick,
to, oh, go for it.
just to clarify, if
Okay,
the Bears are to get second, and this is how Caleb Williams immediately buys the hearts of those. I look at the Bears fan base, and politicians. I don't want to get into politics. I'm not going to say, we don't talk politics typically on the show, but I'm making an analogy. In our modern electoral system, we have, I'm just going to spitball this, but I would say it's
sure.
about 40%, Democrat, 40% Republican. I think this is leaning more towards 50 or 60 in support of Caleb Williams with what we've seen lately. But I think at least going into the NFL draft, given the Justin Fields situation, given the chance of Marvin Harrison Jr., it felt like 40% of the Bear fans all in on Caleb Williams. 40% were like, nah, he's not it. And 20% are undecided, which is, how I look at it. Country, about 40% of people are going to be Democrats, 40 will be Republican, and the other 20% could be convinced. The one way for Caleb Williams to take that 20% and maybe take another 20% from the other side is to beat the Green Bay Packers. It's
Sure.
something that Justin Fields was not able to do. It's something the Bears have not been able to do. If they're going to get second in the division, they have to at least split one of two against Green Bay. And they got to win in Chicago. They got to win in Chicago. They got to give the fans something to be fired up about. This is finally the year. Law of averages says it, Tom. The Bears beat the Packers at Soldier Field. Mark it down, baby. By the way, Tom, you said 9-8, 10-7. I'm not that far ahead of you. I have them 10-7 or 11-6. I think if things go well, 11 wins. If things are just okay, 10 wins. The Bears, by the way, have a top 5 easiest schedule in the league. And if they go 10-7, That's going to be good enough for a wild card spot. I really think so. 10-7 will get them a wild card spot. With their schedule, the Bears should go at least 10-7, maybe 11-6. But if they go 10-7 and get a wild card spot, even the third spot, I'll be happy as a fan. I want to see a playoff spot in double-digit wins, though, Tom. 9-8's not enough for me. Give me 10 at least.
Well, they're surely going to have to earn their way to that. I mean, with the last place schedule, quote unquote, that they have, that's certainly within the range of outcomes. In the NFC South, this is probably the least glamorous division that we're going to be talking about. We've got a Saints team with Derek Carr, who is a passable veteran quarterback. Baker Mayfield with an extension. That was a huge bet that the Buccaneers made and paid off in spades as they signed him to what was like a $4.5 million contract last season. Now he's being paid significantly more money as they are going for the division. The Panthers, of course, were renowned for being the worst team in the league and not even really bearing the benefit for being the worst team in the league. But they bring in a new head coach in Dave Canales, who really helped elevate Geno Smith in Seattle, elevate Baker Mayfield in Tampa. Can he do the same thing for Bryce Young? And then, of course, there's all this drama around the Atlanta Falcons bringing in the $100 million man, Kirk Cousins, and then drafting the heir apparent Michael Penix 8th overall. So, Kamen, there's a lot to go over with this division. I suspect we're only going to be seeing one of these teams playing late into January or middle of January, playing on that super wild card weekend. Who's it going to be?
Yeah, I think it's a two-team race. I think the Panthers, by the way, I like Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young is going to be a good quarterback. He just has so many bad players and, around him. Carolina, I think, is still the fourth place team in the division. I think the Saints are mediocre. They're kind of stuck in a really bad spot because they're not really, really bad. Their defense is above average. Derek Carr is probably a little bit below average, but not terrible. Chris Olave is pretty solid, but, he's not amazing. He's their number one. Alvin Kamara, a lot of issues off the field. He's lost a step or two, but he's still good. So the Saints aren't like terrible, but they're in that like 8-9 range. If things go wrong, maybe 7 wins, maybe 9. They're not a playoff team. It's a two-team race. It's the Falcons, who are the betting favorite, or the Bucks, who won last year. They're the second betting favorite. Atlanta, by the way, this is how bad Atlanta's quarterback room is. This is how bad it is. Desmond Ridder, who has been the starting quarterback last year, did not make the Cardinals roster. Let me say that again. He wasn't the Cardinals' backup. Desmond Ridder tried to make the Cardinals. He didn't make the roster. If you look at between him and Marcus Mariota, a little bit of Taylor Heineke in there, who was the best of the three, but still not good. Probably the worst quarterback room in the NFL. It's that or the Jets. Obviously, now the Jets have Rodgers. They're much better, but just looking at the last 2 to 3 years, Falcons 31st or 32nd when it comes to the quarterback position. Kirk Cousins, Tom Casselman, is a top 10 quarterback in the league. Breathe, everybody. Breathe. It's true. He's a top 10 quarterback in the National Football League. He has been statistically top 10. Before last year, Tom, there was 4 quarterbacks in the NFL that had at least 120 touchdown passes and 16,000 passing yards the previous 4 years. It was Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, and Kirk Cousins. Why is Kirk Cousins not one in the playoffs? Look at the Washington franchise. Look at the Minnesota Vikings. Have those franchises won anything in the playoffs the last 20 years? Look at where Washington is pre-Kirk Cousins, post-Kirk Cousins, and now. Worse. Where's Minnesota without Kirk Cousins? They were the division winner with Cousins last year. He goes out, they miss the playoffs. Kirk Cousins does not win playoff games because he played for Minnesota and Washington. He's the top 10 quarterback in the league with Drake London, with Bijan Robinson, with Kyle Pitts as well. He's like a veteran point guard. The Falcons have all these young players. They need a veteran point guard to dish out the ball. Kirk Cousins can do it. By the way, Tom, before Cousins got hurt last year, statistically was the #1 quarterback in the league. I like Baker Mayfield. I like Mike Evans. I like what the Bucs did last year. Kirk Cousins will lead the Falcons to the NFC South, and he will finish top 5 in MVP voting this year. Kirk Cousins. That's my boy,
I don't like
Kirk
that one bit.
O'James.
I don't like that one bit.
Top 10 quarterback in the league, Tom.
Can we do a quick exercise? I want to put
Yes.
this to the test.
Do it.
So I'm going to name quarterbacks, and you tell me where to stop, where you're putting Kirk Cousins above them.
Okay.
So Patrick Mahomes,
Yep.
Josh Allen,
Yeah.
Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, CJ Stroud, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love, Tua,
Okay. So
Kyler Murray, Stafford.
yes,
I have him on the outside the top 10.
I have him right with a lot of those guys. I have him ahead of Jordan Love for now. I have him ahead of Dak Prescott. I have him ahead of who are the guys you listed after the top 5?
Stafford, Tua, Trevor Lawrence,
Trevor
Murray.
Lawrence and Kyler Murray. Kirk Cousins is better, not more talented, better quarterback, more proven quarterback than both of those guys.
I have him
Now
in the
I've
cloud
got
of
him in that
pretty
like
good.
9 to 10 range, Tom. And again, I say this a lot.
Okay.
6th best quarterback and 12th best quarterback. It's a small gap, but Trevor Lawrence. What has Trevor Lawrence done compared to Kirk Cousins? Kirk Cousins is the better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence right now. I'm not saying that Trevor Lawrence doesn't have more upside, but for this next season, not for the next 10 years, Trevor Lawrence is younger. Currently, for this next season, you have 1 season to win. You have Kirk Cousins, Trevor Lawrence, and Kyler Murray. Kirk Cousins over both those guys. No question.
He's third for me also, no question.
Oh
But anyway, I mean, we can agree, we can disagree on the superlatives around Kirk Cousins and still agree that the Falcons are going to be the team that wins this division.
Okay.
I think that, they have a little bit of that LA flair with I'm blanking on the name of the offensive coordinator that they brought over from LA. But they're certainly going to be hyper focusing on the offensive weapons that they have, something that they didn't have with their previous head coach, Arthur Smith, for whatever reason. Splitting touches between Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. There's a clear difference, not just in talent, but also team investment. I mean, Kyle Pitts had a really good rookie season, and I think as a football community, we've been waiting for him to be special ever since. Drake London, a similar profile of really, really talented player, doesn't necessarily have the production because the situation hasn't been great. Kirk Cousins is really good at making his talented players look good. That's what a good veteran quarterback does, a talented veteran quarterback does. I think that they also have a pretty solid defense as well. We'll see if there's any sort of regression with Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with the changeup on their offensive coordinating staff now that Canales got the promotion going to Carolina. And yeah, I think that the Saints, they've been struggling with cap issues since the Drew Brees era. And I think that until they, just kind of like bite the bullet, so to speak, have a rough year or two, they're going to be stuck kind of going for some piecemeal half measures in trying to remain competitive in the middle of the pack there. And the Panthers, I agree. I mean, on the path to getting better, I don't necessarily know if I'd say I'm bullish on Bryce Young being a good NFL quarterback. I think he's probably kind of in the middle of the pack. There's just so much talent above him. I think it's going to take he's going to have to jump a couple of levels in order for him to be considered in that range.
Just to clarify, Tom,
Uh-huh.
in the history of the National Football League, we have more talent at the quarterback spot than we've ever had, and it's not even close.
Sure.
So the guy that might be the 15th best quarterback today in about 90% of errors is a top 5 quarterback. So even if we put a certain guy as the 12th best quarterback, let's keep in mind that about 10, 15 years ago, he was probably the 6th or 7th best quarterback. There's a litany of NFL talent There's so many great quarterbacks that can do literally everything. We as football fans are absolutely blessed to have
Mhm.
all these great quarterbacks that we do have.
I mean, if that's your style of game, I mean, sometimes I miss like the nostalgia of like the ground and pound that those old Ravens teams and Patriots
Yeah,
teams are all
because
about
you're a
defense and
defensive
everything.
nerd.
Yeah, I think that stuff's fun.
Ugh.
But anyway, a division that's considerably more fun than the NFC South is the NFC West. And that's because this is a division that I think is right up there with the AFC North as being really, really deep, really, really talented, really, really good. We've got the Cardinals, no slouch. If I'm picking them to be perhaps the last place team, I'm kind of between them and the Seattle Seahawks. There's a ton of talent on both of these teams. There's a lot of pretty solid coaching. I mean, the Cardinals last season were a team that I thought were going to be absolutely atrocious with Kyler Murray missing time. They went out and they beat the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, they ended up with the 3 seed overall, but I think that with the moves that they were able to make, they get a healthy Kyler Murray. They kind of proved that they have an answer at tight end in Trey McBride. He made a pretty big step from his rookie year to his second year. You bring in Marvin Harrison Jr. Uh, Drafting Trey Benson gives you an additional running back. So I think that they're a team that is on the way up. They're a talented team that's going to be on the rise. They're going to finish last place in this division, but I think that if you move them to other divisions, they could be in talk for having being a middle of the pack team. Seattle Seahawks, I think, are also a solid team, and of course, the Rams do a phenomenal job of just finding talent and getting the most out of it. Kyron Williams came out of nowhere last year. Puka Nacua had some training camp hype. I know that's something that, as a either fantasy fan or just a football fan, you got to take that with a grain of salt, but it paid off in spades as he had the greatest rookie receiving season of all time. Of course, Matthew Stafford, he's right there as like one of these veteran quarterbacks that just he knows exactly what he's doing in his sleep, knows how to put his guys into the best position for success. And then we've got the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, I'm burying the lead here. They're the best team in this division, perhaps the best team in the conference, maybe edging out the other two teams. I think that people would say Philadelphia and Detroit are right up there with them as far as being talented. I think that the 49ers might edge them out even for that title. If we're looking at Super Bowl odds, if we're looking at NFC title odds, we're seeing Chiefs 1, 49ers 2, and in the NFC, 49ers are pretty much the consensus best team. I see no reason really to not pick them as the top team in this division. They just have so much talent on both sides of the ball. It's utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches. I mean, Trent
Yes.
Williams, one of the best offensive linemen in the league. Then you have Nick Bosa, one of the best defensive linemen. You have Fred Warner as the linebacker. Obviously, even if this whole Ayuk thing, like, if something crazy happens with Ayuk, and even if there's some sort of issues, they have Debo Samuel, they have George Kittle, they have Christian McCaffrey, very underrated quarterback in Brock Purdy with what he's done. The single season passing yards leader, Niner history. Not Montana, not Steve Young, Brock Purdy, baby.
Hmm.
They have
Well, but that's
possibly the best roster. I know eras, whatever.
yes.
I'm just saying the Brock Purdy is doing better than Jimmy G did. And you'll say all you want to say about Jimmy G, but Jimmy G, when
And
healthy, which he was not healthy last year, he's a baseline average quarterback. Jimmy G was not doing what Brock Purdy was doing. Brock Purdy, another guy that, it's kind of hard to make a top 10 because there's so many good quarterbacks. But now that I think of it,
do tier
maybe
base,
he is a
cloud them
top
all.
10. He's good. He's really good. Brock Purdy is terrific. I'm going to have a little mini upset pick in this division,
Hmm.
not for the winner. I love all that you're saying about the Cardinals. I'm going to pick the Cardinals to get third and the Seahawks to get fourth. I think this is a division where the last place team gets 8 or 9 wins. I look
Mm-hmm.
at, probably the Seahawks and Cardinals get 8 or 9 wins. The Rams get 10 wins, and then the Niners get like 13 wins. First place in the division, the most talented team. The Rams are a very, very interesting team to look at. So Kyron Williams last year, Tom, finished third in the league in rushing yards, and he played 11 games. He was actually number one in the league in rushing yards per game. Puka Nacua, as you mentioned, Best rookie receiving season ever, catches, receiving yards, you name it. Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp were injured last year. They played for some of the year, but there was injuries, a lot of injury concerns with those guys. And of course, they lost Aaron Donald. The Rams defense is not good. And they lost the best player on that defense. Even if he was slightly over the hill the last year or two, he was still probably a top 5 defensive player in the league. That's a guy that's hard to replace. By the way, Aaron Donald, he just raced LaShawn McCoy. I don't know if you saw the clip.
Yes.
And he beat him. I know McCoy's a little bit older, but that's a defensive
and
tackle
not
beating a
and
running
not
back.
not in prime football shape the way that Donald still
I'm
is.
just saying. The Rams defense has issues, but on paper, and this is the caveat for me, whether they get the final wild card spot or not, because it's going to go down to Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp's health. If Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp play 17 games with Kyren Williams and Puka Nacua, just on the offense alone, the Rams will get a wild card spot. That's a loaded offense. Incredible talent, just up and down the offense. It's the Dolphins and the Rams that have the 2 best offenses on paper. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to happen because both of those teams have had some injuries. But on paper, the Rams offense is next level. So I'm picking the Rams to get second. The Niners, I mean, even as much as I love Brock Purdy, and I do love Brock Purdy a lot, he's still not quite on that first-tier quarterback level of a Mahomes, for example. Because if we take off Brock Purdy and we put Mahomes or Josh Allen, or one of these top 5 quarterbacks in the league, the Niners probably win the Super Bowl, which is just such a crazy, crazy spot that they're in. Because they're not going to get somebody better than Brock Purdy. All the better quarterbacks already have deals. They're in a really tricky spot because they're a top 3 team in the league, but I don't know if they're a Super Bowl winning team. They got to get over the hump against the Chiefs. I'm not sure if they can, but I think over a 17-game season, the Niners are the top dog in the NFC. Give me the Niners to win the West, and let's talk about the wild cards. Let's do it the same way we just did it. 1 through 3 as far as most confident for the NFC wild cards.
Yeah, I'm going to jump right in with the Dallas Cowboys. Really, really talented team. I think they have some questions at running back and kind of figuring out who's going to be kind of like second or third pass catcher. I know CeeDee Lamb, of course, is one. Jake Ferguson showed he's a fairly solid tight end, but he's also not necessarily this, wow you with his athleticism. He's more about, okay, opportunities within the red zone and being a big body, a big target for Dak Prescott. Who's that second wide receiver going to be? How is the split going to go between Rico Dowdle and Ezekiel Elliott? Are the Cowboys going to make a move where they pick up another running back to try to give just a little more oomph to that position, just to try to balance the offense out a little bit? That's, I think, but I think all that said, they still have a ton of talent on both sides of the ball, and they won the division last year. Absolutely had a horrendous playoff performance. We'll see if what or if anything they learn from that going forward. But I think just on pure talent, you got to go with the Cowboys as my most confident team, wild card team for the NFC.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I look at, I think, again, Dallas or Philly. If Dallas happens to win the division, then Philly's my wild card pick. But they got Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs at cornerback. That's a pretty loaded cornerback room. Ball hawks, pick 6 type guys, right? Touchdown machines on defense. Dak Prescott led the NFL in passing touchdowns last year. I know that's kind of what I was talking about a lot last year. Dallas doesn't have a number 2, but to make the playoff, maybe that's what puts him over the top. But to make the playoffs, CeeDee Lamb led the league in catches last year. He was top 2 or 3 in yards. CeeDee Lamb is my number 3 receiver in the NFL, Tom. I go Hill, Jefferson, Lamb, Chase, probably maybe Puka 5th. But I do really like CeeDee Lamb. I don't know if they need to have a number 2 because it sure worked last year. They have a good enough defense. They don't even need a running game. I mean, these are things that they need to fix if they want to win the Super Bowl. But as far as making the playoffs, Micah Parsons with those cornerbacks, with Dak, with Lamb, very, very talented roster. The Cowboys get that wild card spot. I do agree with you. They're top dog as far as the most confident wild card spot for me. How about your number
Yeah,
two? Because real quick,
number 2.
I've got for the final three spots, I've got the Bears, the Packers, the Rams. Three teams battling for two playoff spots for me personally, Tom. And I think
Mhm.
all three are super duper close.
Yeah, I mean, I think one's closer to in than the others. I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers. We saw what they did to the Dallas Cowboys last season. We saw what they did. Like I said, the whole learning curve with Jordan Love, starting strong, struggling, kind of figuring some things out. That's a product of, a good coach and a good pupil. And of course, a lot of talent going on all around them. The Packers, I think, are a pretty solid option to be the second wild card team in for me. And I'm kind of with you with that wild card. I think I'd throw the Seahawks in there. I'd give them a little bit more credit as being kind of an outside chance. I think that they're probably distant for my third spot, but I'm going to go with Packers and kind of leave this little troika here for the last one. Who do you have as your second most confident team getting in?
Going the Bears. I'm going the Bears. I mean, it's one of those where the Bears, Packers, and Lions play each other.
Mhm.
So it's like I was going to pick the NFC North runner up as the number two team. That just made the most sense to me. NFC North has a fairly favorable division schedule. Their
Mhm.
out of conference opponent is the AFC South, which is, I mean, you could argue the AFC
Winnable.
West is worse, but then again, you play the Chiefs, which is almost virtually a guaranteed loss.
Yeah,
So,
but those other ones are pretty
eh,
valuable wins, getting the Broncos, Raiders, and Chargers. Like that's pretty
yeah,
valuable.
but I'm just saying you either want the South or you want perhaps the West. So it's not pretty favorable out of conference opponents, generally speaking, for me. Um, Again, it's maybe a little bit of heart overhead because I think the Bears and Packers on paper are pretty darn close. I think they both have terrific quarterbacks. I agree with you that the Packers are more of a proven team, but I like the guys Caleb Williams has. As much as I love Jordan Love, I like Caleb Williams better. I like Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Roma Dunze better than, you know, Romeo Dobbs and Jaden Reed and Christian Watson. Like I said, the Packers have a bunch of number two receivers. The Bears arguably have three number one receivers. Obviously, we'll see what happens with the
Mhm.
development of Roma Dunze, but Keenan Allen was a number one receiver last year. And by the way, on pace for the single season catch record till we got hurt. DJ Moore was top 7 in the league in receiving yards. He was a number one receiver. The Caleb Williams has better weapons than Jordan Love. Both teams have good defenses. No doubt about that. When it's this close, I have to go hard. So I'm going to go with the Bears hitting that second wild card spot for the NFC, which for me leaves it to the Packers and the Rams for the
Mhm.
final playoff spot out in the NFC. What do you got, though?
I won't leave you hanging any longer. I got the Bears grabbing that last wild card spot. I
Yes!
will have them just edging out Seahawks, just edging out the LA Rams for that last spot. I'm ready just enough to get hurt a little bit. This is a
Yeah.
season where I certainly want them to win every single game possible, but from a more realistic standpoint, I think that getting the last wild card spot is absolutely a win for them. I think it's good, not necessarily incremental being a good thing or being the goal. Obviously, you want Super Bowl to be the goal, but for having a really talented rookie quarterback, just getting into the playoffs, just having a shot, seeing what happens at that point. I mean, the Packers were the last playoff team in, I believe, last season. The Cowboys had the second seed, and the Packers absolutely waxed them. Bears could be in a position to do that this year, and I know that Ryan Poles in consecutive years, to greater effect than one and the other, is willing to trade a second round pick to get a veteran player onto the team. did not work out in the slides with Chase Claypool, worked out really well in acquiring Montez Sweat. And we saw the difference that the Bears defense went from bad to pretty okay, actually, pretty good.
Oh, they were
Do the
better than
Bears have
average last
do
year.
the Bears have another move like that in them? They have not just their own second round pick next year, they've got that Panthers second round pick. So they have a little bit of extra ammunition to play with if they're going to look at this team and say, okay, we have a solid baseline going into the season. I personally have a couple of questions as far as how their offensive and defensive lines are going to play because everywhere else, really, really confident. You got to bolster up the trenches, I think, just a little bit more. Is getting, Hassan Reddick from the New York Jets, because I know he's been grumbling for a trade. Do you get that extra edge rusher? Do you go and try to find somebody along the offensive line that you can bring in to be just a bona fide lockdown offensive lineman. These are the things that the Bears have a track record of going out and doing with this current regime. So that's why, in addition to the talent, I also think they have the mindset to say, we've got the guy on the rookie contract. Now is the window to absolutely go for it, swing for the fences.
Yeah, I agree. I love it. I think you clinched it for me. Now, if I'm being completely honest with you, Tom,
Hmm.
I should probably pick the Cowboys, the Bears, and Packers to make the NFC playoff spots. But that would be the exact same thing as you. So the fact that you picked the exact same thing as me, give me the Rams. Give me the Rams.
Let's
Rams
go.
get that final wild card spot. Get out of here, Green Bay. Boo, Green Bay. Give me the Rams. Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nakua, Kyron Williams, an embarrassment of riches on offense. Sean McVay, the terrific offensive coordinator. I like the Rams getting that final wild card spot. Couple key games, though. Bears and Rams. I'm actually looking to go to this game as a fan September 29th. Could be a wild card tiebreaker. Luckily, in Chicago, that could help the
Hmm.
Bears. Bears and Packers play each other twice this year. Same division record, same conference record. I think there's going to be some tiebreakers happening here. The fact that the Bears play the Rams at home is very, very good. I also low key, there is such an abundance of optimism and momentum right now in Chicago. Momentum, I tend to think that it sometimes is overhyped. Sometimes, again, maybe it's my heart speaking, Tom, but I love that the Bears play the Tennessee Titans week 1. The Tennessee Titans are a bad football team. Will Levis has a lot to figure out. Just starting the season 1-0. And again, preseason, say what you will,
Hmm.
but they won every game in preseason. They're on Hard Knocks. Everybody's cheering for them. There's a lot of like really positive energy. You start week 1 with the win, confidence goes through the roof. Having the
And but then you
Tennessee
gotta
Titans on the schedule week 1, Tom, for me, love it. Whereas the Packers play a good Eagles team
in Sao Paulo.
in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Green Bay starts
Hope everybody
0-1. Chicago starts 1-0. Momentum, all is right with the world.
hope everybody has their Peacock subscription
I
ready
do.
to go for that
I've got it,
one. I
but
don't
I'll be
think I do,
working.
so
I'll have it on in the background,
well
but I'll
that'll
be
that'll work.
working.
I think that'll be where I'm just following along on the Twitters because I don't have Peacock and I am not going to give the NFL the satisfaction.
Okay.
Let's kind of we've been at this show for a little over 2 hours now. I think we got to give the people what they really want, which is the
Sure.
Super Bowl pick. I mean, we
Sure.
can look at a season in aggregate, 17 games. I mean, we pretty much went with a lot of chalk on this one for picking our division and our wild card winners. But Super Bowl, you said something to me off air, Colin, and that you said you were going to predict who like what I was going to say for my Super Bowl pick and my Super Bowl champion. And we've already talked about these teams in depth because they're at the top of the field. So I feel very, very confident just kind of giving a little Cliff's Note recap as to why I like each of these teams to make it to the Super Bowl and to win it. So, Kamen, do you have it off air? Are you ready to like hold the phone up and game show style, just turn it around once I reveal my answer? Because I want to see,
Sure.
I typically go off the wall. I'm going to go this year with the Philadelphia Eagles over the Houston Texans
That's not what I
for
had.
the Super Bowl.
I
What'd you
had
have?
Ravens over Lions.
Ravens over Lions. That's a good
Your
one.
your pick. Not what I have.
No,
That's what I had for your
I know,
pick.
but like I said with the Eagles, I like the investments that they have made on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, bringing in Saquon Barkley as an upgrade over DeAndre Swift, and then a little move on the margins, adding Jahan Dotson from the division rival Commanders. Dotson, strong a rookie season, disappointing second season. I think that's a little bit to do with the fact that the Commanders just weren't very good. Sam Howell, a fifth round draft pick has some talent, but certainly now you're moving up to Jalen Hurts, who is a guy that is an MVP candidate. Even if we didn't necessarily discuss him in that first segment, we didn't have him as our MVP. And of course, flipping over to a very talented, very deep Houston Texans team. You're absolutely right, Common, when you said that they could possibly get the number one overall seed. They could be hosting home field advantage all the way through the AFC playoffs. And of course, yeah, they're playing in a dome, but guess what? Their opponent is too. I think that there's going to be a lot of benefit for a team that could be scary, like the Baltimore Ravens or the Kansas City Chiefs coming into that environment. But if I'm the Houston Texans, I would much rather be at home with a younger, a little bit less experienced team, just to kind of take a little bit of that edge difference away from the Ravens or from the Chiefs, two teams that are a little bit more veteran, a little bit more been there, done that. I think that, Texans absolutely have a big step forward that they can take. I know the favorites is Chiefs and 49ers. Second favorite is going to be, like you said, Detroit and Baltimore. But I really like what both of these teams have done in the offseason. I think they're right up there with, kind of the top three in each conference. I think we can agree that those, pretty widely are the top three by consensus. I really like both those teams to come out of there.
Yeah, I don't hate the pick, by the way. If I had to pick a team that outside of the Chiefs, out of the
Mhm.
AFC, I would pick the Texans or the Bengals personally. Those
Sure.
would be my top two most likely teams outside of the Chiefs. Like I said, like you said, the Texans play in a weaker division. If they, the ball goes right, they get the first overall seed. They host a bunch of
Hmm.
playoff games. They have a really, really good quarterback with really, really good weapons. Collins, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs with CJ Stroud. They have a defensive coach on a good defensive team. They have no weaknesses in Houston. The only weakness is, I guess, experience. But I, I think CJ Stroud has it. That's a guy that I'm not so worried about. I look at Joe Burrow. I look at Patrick Mahomes. I look at CJ Stroud. I look at Caleb Williams. Those are the four guys to me, Tom, that have the undeniable it factor.
Hmm.
So I don't hate the pick. I don't hate it. I have a different pick, of course. I'm going with the Chiefs. Let me flip jerseys again, Tom. Or can I go over? Can I go over? Let me see how fat I
I
am and
think
how.
just hold it up. Just hold it up in
No, no,
front of
we're
the
going
camera.
over.
I
We're switching it up.
okay.
We're
That's a little
switching it
bit.
up. We're back.
Oh,
Kansas City Chiefs are back. All
wearing the
right, back to the
Easters over a
Mahomes jersey,
Peyton
Tom.
jersey. Oh,
Back
I
we
would have preferred the
go.
switch.
All right,
Oh,
so
this is borderline sacrilege.
sacrilege. Here's what we got. We got Patrick Mahomes with essentially compared to last year's regular season team, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster. Three additions. Rashi Rice late in the year last year, virtually a fourth addition for a whole season, and a healthy Travis Kelce. That's almost like five weapons added. Give me half for Rice, half for Kelce, who were half there for last year. Stacked. They want to make history. The first team ever to go for a three-peat, first team ever that could win three in a row. They do it. They think they get it done. Their roster this year might be the best roster they've had in any Super Bowl run. Because their defense last year, Tom, statistically was a top 2 defense in the league. It was the Ravens and the Chiefs were the best 2 defenses in the league. Their offense early on with Hill and Kelsey might be a little bit more talent on offense, but when they were first winning the Super Bowl, Tom, their defense was middle of the pack, a little bit better than average, but very middle of the pack. They have on paper a top 2 defense and probably a top 5 offense in the league. Not the best overall offensive team they've had, but best overall football team. This is the best Kansas City Chiefs team they've had. If they won the Super Bowl last year, which was probably one of their lesser teams they've had, they should win it this year. As for the NFC, the Niners are the best team, but I can't pick back-to-back Super Bowls. That's just doesn't make sense. It doesn't happen. It's extremely rare.
Mm-hmm.
I went very, very chalkish with my Chiefs pick. Not that this isn't chalkish, but it's going to feel like David versus Goliath based on the history of this other team. You probably know where I'm headed. Detroit Lions.
So.
Detroit Lions essentially should have made the Super Bowl last year. They really blew the game against the Niners. Yeah, the Niners came back. I think it was about 65% Lions blowing it, 35% Niners coming back. I think the Lions are better this year. They got Tyrion Arnold as the defensive back. Now they have, like I said, talking about getting the number 1 overall seed. 14 out of 17 games inside a dome this year for the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff is the dome god, as they call him. They'll get the number 1 seed in the NFC. Eagles and Niners on the road. Maybe Detroit gets that little bit of extra edge. I mean, did you see the Lions crowd against the Rams? This might be potentially the loudest home environment in the history of the National Football League. If the Detroit Lions host a NFC Championship game, just tell me they're going to lose. Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, you guys will not hear a single play call. You will not hear anything in your headset. Is it going to be a blowout? No, but there might be 1 or 2 plays where they don't know what's going on. Give me the Lions. Lions play the Chiefs. Chiefs win the Super Bowl. Eminem versus Taylor Swift. Track battle, a diss battle. Eminem wins the battle, the music battle.
Yes.
But Taylor Swift's boo, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs become the first team in National Football League history to win 3 Super Bowls in a row.
That's pretty bold right there, Kamen. That is that. I mean, I'm not surprised about your Super Bowl winner because I know where your fandom, your alliances lie. This is absolutely phenomenal way, I think, to kind of round out the show. We've got our betting locks of the week. We are starting the season anew with no professional football coming up this week. We've got some college games. I'll just breeze through my picks really, really quickly here.
Okay. By the way, real quick, I went NFL week 1. I know we have, I know next week I'm busy Wednesday, so I wasn't planning on having a show.
Oh, okay.
But I went ahead and picked week 1 because I am pretty busy next week. But if you want to go college, you can go college.
No, actually, if you don't mind going ahead, then I will go ahead and look at the NFL week 1 lines as well, because that's where I would like to go.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit more comfortable picking that. I just wasn't sure if which one we were doing, basically. So go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm starting first off real quick. I want to read off the final records for last year, which you were the winner, Tom. 48-36. One of the best betting experts in the world. So if anyone on this show wants to take some real betting advice, just listen to Tom Casselman. Do not follow his golf picks. If he makes a golf pick, don't listen. But if he talks about anything else other than golf, take your money and follow Tom's advice. 48-36. I can proudly say I was 1 game over 500, 42-41-1. So I believe for the first time in show history, both of us, the whole panel finished over 500 as far as the betting front went. As for this year, Yeah, I'm looking at my schedule, Tom. I was going to say we could probably skip the show next week. We'll do a show very, very soon. I went with an all NFL card. I've got the Chiefs -3 over the Ravens. I love the Chiefs at home. Casey has the Ravens number in the Mahomes and Jackson era. Chiefs have won 4 out of 5 matchups with one road loss by 1 point in 2021. Casey's defense frustrated the Ravens last year. I look for more of the same. I like Derrick Henry. He's going to be great in that offense. Might take a couple weeks to get used to it. Week 1, by the way, the Chiefs remember what happened last year. Travis Kelce and Chris Jones will play this year. They are not losing back-to-back games at Arrowhead Stadium in front of their football fans. Not going to happen. 3-point spread is very, very low. Chiefs win by more than 3. Give me the Chiefs -3 over the Ravens next Thursday. There's a theme. There's a theme, Tom Casselman. I'm going Homer week 1. I'm going Homer. Let's take the jersey off again.
Oh
take the jersey off again. We're back. The Bears are back. Bears -4.5 over the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
This is the week 1 spread I feel best about. Of all the games on the schedule for the betting spread, Bears -4.5. Tennessee is a terrible football team. They overachieved under Mike Vrabel for years. Now Vrabel is gone, they will struggle even more. Tennessee is particularly bad on the road. I know it's a little bit different team, but last year, the Tennessee Titans, Tom, were 1-7 on the road. The Bears at home, Tom, 5-2 at Soldier Field. 5-2. I like the Bears roster way more. I like the Bears offense way more. Bears have better receivers. They have a better quarterback. I think Will Levis will struggle mightily. Bears win by 5 or more at Soldier Field. Easy. Mark that one down as the lock of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, we're on the same page with the Texans, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
If they played in the NFC, I probably would pick them to make the Super Bowl. I like the Texans -2.5 at the Colts. It's a dome game. It's a familiar opponent. I think Anthony Richardson is going to struggle early on in the season. Talk about growing pains. He'll have growing pains. It'll be a really, really good defense he faces, a really, really good offense for Houston, a really, really good Houston football team. 2.5 points is nothing. Texans -2.5 to knock out the Colts. Bears -4.5 over the Titans. And the Chiefs -3 over the Ravens. I am going with teams I like. I'm going with players I like. I'm going to start the season going bias. And you know what? That's the way I like it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm right there with the Texans -2.5 at Indianapolis. I'm liking that a lot. Always a little bit nervous taking going against the home dog, but I think that the Texans are going to be primed for a solid, strong start to the season. Let's go ahead and give me the Dallas Cowboys +2.5 in Cleveland. Again, going a little risky here, going for the road team here, but
I agree.
Deshaun Watson has looked awful through the entirety of training camp. The Cleveland defense, I know I'm about to say something that's going to sound counterintuitive, but they were the best defense at home last year, worst defense on the road. That to me kind of sounds a little bit like variance. I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, and I certainly don't think that that split is going to hold up this year. I think that, CeeDee Lamb getting his big contract, he will be playing or practicing just enough. Obviously, he and Dak have a ton of chemistry. So they don't really need to work on anything as far as getting on the same page, I don't think, heading into the season. It will be curious to see what they figure out for the running game on offense. I think that there's definitely some challenges, but I'll go ahead. I think the Cowboys' talent on both sides of the ball is too great to really be looking at them as underdogs against Cleveland. And then give me the Eagles -2.5 in Sao Paulo. I'll go ahead and get a little international Brazilian flavor there. I don't know how to say any of this in Portuguese, but that is completely fine. Eagles -2.5 against the Packers. I think that their revamped secondary gets a little bit of a test against Green Bay and that deep receiving core, but I certainly think that with the additions on the offensive side that the Eagles have made, they certainly are going to be more than a match for Green Bay to start out the season.
First off, usually when we ride, and when we ride, I mean me picking the same thing as you, usually goes well for
Mhm.
both of us. Uh, is it bad? I think I agree with all your picks, and we're looking at a 6-0 week, Tom.
It's a brand new season. I mean, it would be a great way for us to start
W-
that way.
We
You,
did
me, and then the whole
really
team.
good the NFL season last year. Sorry to cut you off
Yeah,
there,
no, you're good.
but we did really good. I think both of us took a lot of our L's during the non-football portion of picks last year.
That sounds about right. And then looking, I've got like the show's history for the most part. I'd say steady improvement overall as we've been doing it the past couple of years. I don't necessarily know. There's going to be an S curve at some point where we reach our peak.
Yes.
Really quickly, Common, do you want to do a little bit of trivia, or shall we save
Yes.
that for next week? Okay,
No,
so
I got a quick trivia. Go ahead. You go ahead
for,
first. Mine's very
for my
timely, but go ahead.
trivia, um, trying to think of a good way to explain it. So there's this baseball player, Danny Jansen. Can you tell me how he made Major League Baseball history? Nobody had ever done what Danny Jansen had done.
Is this
Can you
the
tell me
Blue
what it
Jays and
is?
Red Sox catcher?
Yep.
Yeah, I saw it on Sports Center. So
Yeah, I mean this.
he played for in the same game both teams because the game was postponed because of rain. He ends up
Hmm.
getting traded and he appeared in the box score for both teams.
Yes. First player
Yes.
in Major League Baseball history to do that. This one that, topical if anybody's been paying attention, that they know that this is going to be this is a fairly easy one. But yeah, Danny Jansen's name is a name to remember. File it away for when you're on Jeopardy in, 15 years from now or doing some sort of trivia night. This is just one of the ways that baseball continues to be a cool sport that's completely different from all the other ones because football games are all played in one go. There are no suspensions and rain checks or whatever for basketball or for hockey. You don't get this in any other sport. And until now, you didn't even get it in baseball. But baseball's the one where you can still get these funny little weird things that happen, and they're just a lot of fun to see.
Love it. I actually also have baseball trivia.
Go
I
for
know
it.
we're going to be very football heavy show, very
Hmm.
NFL heavy show in the months to come with our work schedules, especially by not have a show every week necessarily. I know we'll do baseball when it comes to the playoffs, the World Series, but I'm going to do modern baseball right now. By the way, Tom, speaking of baseball, my
Hmm.
preseason picks: Yankees, Dodgers World Series,
I think we both
Otani and
had that.
Judge MVP, both looking good.
I don't think I had the Otani and Judge MVPs, but I think we both had Dodgers and Yankees. And then I got worried about their pitching, but then the Yankees pitching was actually fine. But I digress. What is your
Anyway,
trivia question?
I will go with the best baseball player if Otani doesn't pitch. Because if Otani only hits, he's the second best player. If Otani doesn't pitch, Judge is the best player.
Okay.
So Aaron Judge became the fastest player in MLB history to reach 300 home runs in terms of least games played. Mark McGuire, by the way, is the fastest to 400 and 500. But who is the fastest to 200 career home runs? I don't know if this will help at all, but I'll give you a hint. It's also the same guy that was the fastest to 100 career home runs.
Okay. So
I'm
that
going to give
tells
you
me,
one hint right off the bat.
mhm.
This guy likely will not make the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Well, there goes like,
So that'll make your life
okay.
easier.
I was gonna say that makes it difficult because like I was gonna go for like Mickey Mantle or Hank Aaron or something like that, but the not Baseball Hall of Fame tells me it still had to be somebody who's young, somebody who is good. but I'm gonna go like with a steroid era guy. I'm gonna start off with Alex Rodriguez,
Not Alex Rodriguez.
not A-Rod.
I
Oh,
don't think
Hank,
this
who's
guy ever used steroids. At least he wasn't
hmm,
caught. I could be wrong. He is
hmm.
very much a power hitter. Honestly, with his numbers, if he played basketball or if he played football, maybe he gets in that Hall of Fame. Baseball,
A little more stringent.
right? Yeah.
Most
Mm.
likely not going to be in the Hall of Fame. Fastest to 100 and 200 home runs in a career.
Oh, wow. He won't be in the Hall of Fame because
Is it Chris Bryant?
not Chris Bryant.
Because he had like a really strong start and then
In
he's petered off.
November 22nd, 2021, this
Hmm.
guy received 8 votes for the MLB Hall of Fame, not receiving the 5% minimum, will not appear on future ballots. So, yeah, it does not look like he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I would say
Okay.
power hitter
Power
only,
hitter.
not a great average hitter, not really a defensive guy. He was known for home runs. I'll give you a few other clues, Tom, because this is a hard
Okay.
one.
Sure.
This is a former National League MVP and a World Series champion.
Ryan Zimmerman.
You're kind of warm.
Not Jason Worth. Um,
Twice led the majors in home runs, 2006 and 2008, if that helps.
Adrian Gonzalez?
Nope.
No, not the left-handed first baseman.
He is a left handed first baseman.
A left-handed first baseman, World Series champion. So that eliminates Adam Dunn.
Wow. He really had a really, really good peak.
Joey Votto's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Plus, he's recently retired, so he wouldn't have been voted off anyway.
2016 is when he retired. Played 04 to 2016. 2006 was his MVP season. Wow. That is crazy. He had 58
Left-handed.
home runs in 2006 and 149 RBI. But after 09, especially 2011, he really did fall off quite a bit.
I'm like, this is like MLB The Show '05, and I'm just trying to go through like every left-handed first baseman. There was Carlos Delgado, but he was an older player by then.
National League, keep this in
National
mind.
League.
Only played with one team his entire career.
Prince
Re-
Fielder?
no,
No,
he's a
no
he's
World
a
Series
big
champion.
he's a big guy. So in some way you're warm with this guess.
Why am I having such a difficult time with this?
He was a rookie of the year, an MVP, a 3-time All-Star. Really had about 3 to 4 really, really good peak years. He would be in the Hall of Fame had he kept it up, but unfortunately he didn't. I'm trying to see like what clues I can give you to not give it away.
Yeah, no, this is like I don't know. This should not be stumping me as much as it is.
As soon as you hear it, you'll know it.
Yeah, I'm going to be really aggravated to the point where I start throwing things.
So his first year he played 19 games, second year 88, his third year 159, 58 home runs in the MVP season. He's been on Subway commercials. He was on an episode of The Office. I don't think you watched the show though, unfortunately.
No, that doesn't help me at all.
Um,
Can I have a division?
the
The
NO East.
NL East. Okay. So for not, I don't think it was on the Braves. It was the Braves first baseman. Miguel Cabrera, no. Because he was playing third at the time for the Marlins.
This guy
So it leaves the
pretty much
Mets,
exclusively played first base.
the Nationals, and the Phillies. Oh, Ryan Howard.
Ryan
There we
Howard.
go.
Yeah. Beast. How about that? Ryan Howard, fastest guy to 200 home runs ever. Yet he
Yeah.
stopped that pace because he only hit 382, which is still a lot. But with the
Hmm.
258 batting average, you
Yeah,
know,
he's one of those guys that you look at like a wins above replacement or some other advanced metrics.
14.7.
It's just like, yeah, that's not going to cut it because first base is really devalued, and
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of other things about his game not quite so valid. No, that was a good one. That was a
Yeah.
tough one.
Yeah.
That absolutely was right in the wheelhouse of like,
You were like Ryan Zimmerman. I was like, did he say Ryan Howard? He said Ryan Zimmerman.
no, no, no,
I
right?
was like,
That
you're
was
born with the name.
and the division and everything. But
Yeah,
yeah,
you
that
were
was so.
right there.
So statements of the week, I'm going to keep mine short and sweet, and this is to all the NFL owners out there. Uh, Stop being so stingy. These players that have been holding out for these larger contracts, I know that there's, fitting it within the cap and everything along those lines, but Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, you say you're going for it every year, and yet no extension for Micah Parsons yet. Last I checked, Dak Prescott's due for a contract re-up. CeeDee Lamb, you dragged your feet on extending him. If we go to the Bengals, Jamar Chase still has not arrived at practice. T. Higgins is playing on the franchise tender. These guys are all going to get paid somewhere
The
by
Lamar
someone.
Jackson situation, right?
These are the creme de la creme of the NFL. Uh, Stop being so cheap with these guys. I know it's not just about the cap, it's also about the guaranteed money, the signing bonus, the cold hard cash up front. We see the numbers. We see how much money this league rakes in year over year. I think you guys can pass the hat around, dig through the couch cushions, and come up with a couple few $10 million to pay the guys that really are bringing our eyeballs, our attention to the game. And if it's about winning as much as you like to pretend to say that it's about winning, I mean, we know first and foremost it's about money.
Sure.
But if secondarily, if winning is going to be something that you're going to purport to say that you're a fan of, that you're supporting, that you are driving toward, pay the players, pay the stars that are getting you to that point.
Agreed. Um, it's been a Homer kind of show. I'm a Bears and
Are
Chiefs
you
fan.
are you dusting off the gold jacket already?
No, not ghosting off the go jacket.
I mean, if not
Although,
for him, for who?
come to think of it,
Yeah,
I think he could get the gold jacket.
uh,
Um,
I think more
so
than think.
do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, if it's going homer, I'm saying Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams, yes.
Yeah.
So here are the current Bears records, Tom. Most passing yards in a single season, 3,838 by Eric Kramer. The true record is probably Jay Cutler with 3,812 in 15 games. Didn't have the 16th game, but 3,838 Eric Kramer. The passing touchdown mark, which is just as sad, is 29. That is also Eric Kramer. Caleb Williams will become, in his rookie season, the first Bears quarterback to ever pass for 4,000 yards and 30 passing touchdowns. He will shatter both Bear quarterback records. And yes, Tom, in case you're wondering, he will put on that gold jacket one day. But let's start with the Bears records for passing yards, passing touchdowns, and a playoff appearance. Rome Odunze, wide receiver. Keenan Allen, wide receiver. DJ Moore, wide receiver. Three number one receivers in the league, arguably, talent-wise, arguably, three of the top 15 receivers in the league. He's got the great tools. He's got the great arm. One thing, Tom, I don't disagree with you about. I am a little bit concerned about the Bears' offensive line, but
Mhm.
If you watched Caleb Williams at USC, you will watch that he played with a very bad offensive line. He was running for his life at USC. Did he have good receivers? Yes. But his offensive line was bad. He's used to this. Remember that pass against Roma Dunze? Shuffles over, chucks it right down the sideline for the big play in the preseason. Look for more of that in the regular season. Caleb Williams will have the best season in Bears quarterback history. He'll break all the records.
Oh my
and he's
gosh.
taking us to the playoffs. Go Caleb.
Go Caleb indeed. I
Do
mean,
you
I'll
agree?
be I don't necessarily know about 4,000 yards. I think I think he'll set the records for both of those things.
Eventually, but not this year. Oh, you think so? 3,930 touchdowns.
Something like that. Yeah,
Okay.
I think there's going to be some growing pains. I think we're all going to deal with a lot of different emotions on the roller coaster of the season that we're about to encounter up ahead.
Of course we
I
are.
also know that season over unders is where Vegas makes a really big sum of money because it's the beginning of the season. Everybody's
And
bullish on
baseball season, if
everybody.
you look at my bank account as well.
Oh no, Kamen, what's happened? We'll
It's been
talk
a
later
tough,
about that.
it's been a tough baseball season.
But
But
everybody's
that's
bullish
okay.
on all the players and saying, "Oh, hit the over on yards run for and receptions and touchdowns and this and that." The NFL season's a meat grinder. It's more likely to go under than to go over. I'm going to be very hopeful and thankful for a fully healthy season for Caleb Williams and the rest of the Bears. But I mean, as we've seen over the past couple of seasons, something like 67 or so quarterbacks played last year. I
10
think
had
that
4,000 yards, I believe.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like that many quarterbacks played last year because of all the injuries that go on. You're
Mm.
just hoping for as full and as healthy and as happy and productive a season for Caleb Williams as he can have.
Just for the record, real fast,
Mhm.
I'm not betting this because I can't bet long-term bets because I don't have the patience for it. I don't want to see it in my account and I just wait. So I don't make those. The most I'll do is March Madness or the World Cup where it's like a month. Otherwise, I don't do any long-term bets. But if I were to make one, bet on Caleb over. I'd also bet on Derrick Henry over total touchdowns as well. So we'll
I
see.
would bet on Chiefs to win the AFC West. I think that's minus 300.
Put like $1,000 on it. Should
Yeah.
I? Should I?
I would say I mean it depends on your appetite. I would say
Okay.
if you wanted to put down 300 to win one in 6 months, that's not the worst return on investment that one could make.
You know what? I think I'm just going to pass on the long-term bets. But I'll be cashing in come NFL season. Like last year, the Chiefs were
Yeah,
very profitable for Kamen Entchev. Let's keep that trend going. So terrific show,
absolutely.
Tom. Kind of based on my schedule, thinking we probably won't have a show next week, but if we end up doing something, we'll touch base. But probably looking at a show in the next week or two or so at some point. Maybe let the first week sit. Maybe let the first 2 weeks sit. We'll touch base at some point during the
Indeed.
season. It's going to be a lot of fun. Cannot wait to see how our predictions do. Awesome show. I know our next shows will be a lot shorter, but there was so much to get through tonight.
Oh yeah.
It was worth it. It was
Happy
fun.
football, everybody. We're
I'll be
back.
talking to you virtually on Sunday during our draft. I have redone the league. I canceled the old league. It's a new league. Your and
Do we know what
Jerry's
picks we
mojo
have yet?
must be broken. We have the final spot. He hasn't signed up yet, but we're
Oh,
good.
okay.
I haven't figured it out. So we
Gotcha.
do
All
have
right,
eight
looking
people
forward to
in.
it.
So Sunday at 9:15 for Drew Brackett Central Time.
In the
He's working
PM or
late at
AM?
night. 15 p.m.
Sounds good.
So
Looking
you'll
forward to it,
be
Kamen.
burning the midnight oil again.
Oh
So
yeah.
thanks, Tom, for a great show. Thanks to everyone for watching, listening. You guys are the best. Have a great week, Tom, and we'll talk soon about regular season NFL games. Let's go, baby. Have a good one, Tom.